Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting for the Carpinteria Valley Water District to order. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lisa, if we can do the roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Present.
Director Balch?
Here.
Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Director Roberts?
Here.
Director Holcomb? Here. Okay, 5 present.
Then we got item number 3, public forum. Any person may address the board of directors on any matter within its jurisdiction, which is not on the agenda. And so far, I got 5 speaker slips. I got 6 speaker slips. This for the regular.
Yes.
Okay, you got Scott Grieve, please. Grieve, okay.
Good evening. My name is Scott Grieve, and I am president of the Linden Meadows Homeowners Association. And we have major objections to the placement of the injection well on Meadowview Lane, right next to our complex. But tonight, you're not supposed to talk about that. We're talking about finance tonight, I guess. And so I just want to weigh in on a personal level about finance. About 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I was part of a study, worked on a study of water in this area. And was, I don't know, shocked, chagrined to find out that Carpinteria has the highest water rates of anybody that takes water out of Lake Cachuma. I'm sure there's reasons for that. I'm not sure if they're good reasons, but there's reasons for that. Last year, I came to this meeting when you were going to raise the rates, and you raised them 7.5% per year for 3 years, a total of almost 25%. We had a recent meeting, and we found out that in this area, there's approximately 200 wells. I don't know why we couldn't get an exact number. It was around 200 private wells that are drilled in this district into the water table. And we also told that about 120 of those are active wells. So I don't know how you know when they're active or they're not, because we were told that most of them, or many of them, some of them, aren't metered at all. And the ones that you call inactive, how do you know that? How do you know if they're active or inactive? But I guess my whole point that I want to make is we're being asked at the Meadows to sacrifice a lot for this project, I think. And we are going to go through a lot of pain as the project gets built right outside our front gate. And it seems to me that we're doing this. I mean, I guess I have a good reason that you're going to try to refill the water table, and I guess that's a good thing. But it seems to me that we're going to go through a bunch of sacrifice at our place, and people who have private wells are going to be able to dip into this water table with this replenished water. And it seems like they're away from all of the commotion that is going to be given, and they are also probably, I can't even tell if they're paying what everybody else pays for water. So it seems to me that we're going to do all the sacrificing on this, or a lot of sacrificing on this, and benefits are going to go to people who are away from the commotion and are maybe or maybe not paying for water. So we're going to spend a lot of money to replenish a water table so that private people can tap into it. Seems illogical to me. And as I say, we have, as a group, probably no objection to the project at the Linden Meadows. But we do have objection to the placement of that well right outside our front gate. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to respond one at a time or wait till the roll?
Well, I don't want to get into, back and forth in this forum, but I will say we did meet with Mr. Grieve and the board at the Meadows HOA, and we are looking forward to having additional meetings to work through their concerns. We acknowledge that, they have some valid concerns. And so, I would encourage that board to meet with myself and our technical team so we can check each one of those concerns and see what we can do to, address those concerns and move ourselves to a resolution.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make another comment to Mr. Grieve is that besides the water district, we also run the GSA, which manages the groundwater basin. I think we've been at it for a couple of years, and I think we got a really good plan, which will be up for discussion this evening. And the private pumpers are just as concerned about our rates as the residents are. So we're all residents, and some of us are private pumpers. So everybody is concerned, but everybody's being treated fairly, and I think this board and management has done a good job doing that. You might want to check with Bob on the GSA and how that functions. I think you'll be impressed. So, thank you. Anyone else? Then we got Robert Rod.
Thank you for this opportunity. Again, I want to echo what Mr. Greaves said. We don't have a quarrel with the concept or the need for this groundwater project. One of my main issues is how it's being paid for and really how we're paying. I'm a Carpinteria resident. 21% of my last bill went to my actual water use. The rest went to the state water project, capital improvement projects. Those two alone were 69% of my bill. Now you're talking about that state water project started in 1998. It's going to end. We're going to stop paying for it in 2036. That's 38 years we're paying for that. The capital improvement project started in 2002, and I know there are 4 separate bonds, but they're all going to end in 2035. So that's another decade that we're going to be paying. Like I said, I'm just a regular guy. That's 70% of my bill that's going to be paying these bonds off. Now we're going to add this CAP project. Again, not having a problem with it, but that's going to add, from what I can understand, about $48 to my monthly bill. That means for that 10 years that all of those are going to be concurrent, 13% of my actual bill will be for the water I'm using. The other 87% is going to be paying off loans. And I sort of feel like the residents are being treated like a blank check. Now, I'm not debating that we needed these things, but think about that. 13% of my bill is actually what I'm using. Now, this CAP project is going to cost $69.2 million approximately. I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that it exceeds that, but that's another issue. Of that, $23.4 million has been secured in grants. That means the outstanding $45.8 million that we're seeing right now, we're projecting right now, is going to be paid by the residents and the businesses of this city. So one of my questions is, are you still looking for other funding sources? 2/3 of this project is going to be added on to a bill that's, take a look at, your Carpinteria residents, look at your utility bills. You don't see anything like your gas usage, your electric usage, but your bottom line payment is this exorbitantly high thing. I feel like we're just being treated like, we're going to do this, you're going to pay for it. I want to know that every single stone has been overturned looking for more sources for this money. I understand the efficacy of this project. I understand the need for the project. But the funding seems to be, well, okay, we've got this grants, you guys pay for the rest, because we're paying an awful lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
I'll just add that we are still looking for grant funds. We have a potential $10 million grant that we're going after at starting this fiscal year.
That'd be great. That'd bring our contribution.
Then I got Mike Pollard.
My name is Mike Pollard. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to the directors tonight. I'm the general partner of an office building on the corner of Elm and Carpinteria Avenue. On June 26th, I received a letter from Norma Rosales at your district telling me that our water rates were going to be adjusted from some kind of a mistake. Instead of our CIP charge being based upon water use, it is now going to be based upon commercial units. My question is, what is a commercial unit? No, you should know, because you must have approved this. Somebody on the board, I mean, you don't know what a commercial unit is?
Well, I think all 5 of us approved that, but I think Bob can explain better the residential units and the commercial units and the ag units.
A commercial unit is the commercial equivalent of a residential unit. So in some of these commercial buildings, there are distinct separate units, and that's what the increase of the CIP charge was based on.
Now, in 2023, the district mailed a notice pursuant to Proposition 218 for the adjustment of rates, and it goes through things, and there's an item on the agenda tonight. I don't know what it relates to, but it's an amended Resolution 1170 that I guess does something about these rates. But in the notice I received in 2023, and I received 2 of them, there is no mention of capital units anywhere in here. It specifically says that the CIP charge for commercial properties is based upon water use. Now, all of a sudden, this has just showed up. That's a violation of Proposition 218. You have to give notice, you have to go through a procedure. I never saw a procedure. That's taken our base for that office building. We use about 1,200 cubic feet a month. That's about what a house uses. But they want to charge us for 44 units at whatever the charge is per unit. I don't know I can't remember what it was. On some myth, we don't have 11 rental units or anything like that, but that has nothing to do with the CIP charge. If you read the U.S. Constitution, Article 13, it says that basically water charges and things should be based on proportionality, how much you use. You know how much we use. And to come up with 11 commercial units just out of the blue makes no sense. We were being charged based upon our water use, like everybody else. Now, all of a sudden, I get this letter on the 26th. I gave a letter to the district on July 11th, protesting it. And a couple days ago, I received the water bill. Our SIP charge is almost $300. It's a little over $300. Just to be hooked up, we use about 1,200 gallons a month, just like a single-family house. So it raised that CIP charge almost $200. And it came out of the blue, no notice, and I'd like it reversed.
Actually, I think it's best if either Bob can respond now or we'll research it and respond back to you. But believe it or not, we spend a lot of our time following state regulations. So if you guys want to fault anybody, go back to your state legislature and tell them to cut back on the BS. So.
Well, I've tried that, doesn't work. My vote doesn't count much, but, you know, I just don't think you can charge on a mythical, you know, commercial unit. You know how much water we use. You know, over 20 years ago, I had a problem with the sanitary district. They charged us for that building for how many doors we had, because they said it was too expensive to get the actual water use from the water district. So they counted our doors. What the doors have to do with sewer use? So I was forced to sue them. Took 3 years, but they ended up paying the attorney's fees and paid us back because it was ridiculous. You know how much water we use. The CIP charge can be based upon water use. It should be, just like everybody else. So I think it needs to be looked at, and I think it needs to be reversed.
I believe we'll look into that, and
Can I add
we'll.
something to
Thank
this
you.
conversation?
Go
Just
ahead,
quick.
Matt.
I see a kind of a theme going on here about people's rate interpretation, and they are complex, there's no question. But there is a difference between the commodity that you use, the water that you use, and the system that delivers it to your property. And that's one thing you'll see a distinction in the bills. We're defining the commodity, the cost of the water, the product that's delivered, but then somebody's got to pay for that system, and that system has different capacities based upon your zoning, your needs and your units. So that's why you see those debt services. That's paying for the system that delivers the water.
Yes.
Now, some water districts don't do that because they don't want to confuse people. People are getting confused by our rates, but at least ours are transparent, and you can see what you're paying.
No, they're
what
not.
I just want
I
to
beg
add,
to differ.
if we would put all of the charges onto the unit rate of water, like some water districts do, and I see this in adjacent agencies, your unit rate for water could be $13, $18, $21 a unit instead of our $4 or $5 a unit. So you're going to pay one way or the other. We just
No, I
prefer to show
underst-
you what you're paying for.
I understand that, Mr. Roberts. We have a 1-inch meter. So we have a meter charge based on a 1-inch meter. I have property out in Goleta. We have a 2-inch meter. I mean, our basic charge just to have that meter out in Goleta is almost $400 just to have the meter. Okay, so that's what you're talking about for the amount that can go through that meter. That's what you get charged for, is the system that's out there that can deliver that demand. But again, we use, you know, the 1,200 cubic feet a month, pretty much like a house. And our basic CIP charge is almost $300 or a little over. And it ain't gonna work. That dog don't hunt.
We'll check into it, and we'll
appreciate
get back to you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say a house is about 8 cubic feet and per month. And the other thing is, we are reviewing, we received your email, and we are reviewing the notice that was sent out for the 218 hearing. And we are comparing that to our cost of service to make sure we didn't make an error in terms of
Well,
notice.
there is no reference in your notice that went out in 2023 to commercial unit. Nowhere in that.
Yeah, so we're looking into that.
So there's no way for me to determine it. It says right in there specifically, commercial properties would be charged based upon their water use, a minimum of 400 cubic feet and a maximum of 250, and it's in there in black and white. And then all of a sudden this pops up. So that isn't going to work. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Shirley?
Excuse me. Okay, thank you very much. And this is a different subject, and I've talked about it before, and I'd like to bring it up to the board, especially to bring it to your attention, and it's the credit card charges that the district pays. If somebody wants to pay their bill with a credit card, they pay with a credit card. And we looked into, and it's been going on for years. It's called Open Edge, is the company that we go through. And somehow we're joined at the hip. And we looked at it in January and really found out that if you ask a merchant or something per dollar, our rate is way higher than they're doing. And I don't know if there's other kinds of things involved, but Norma's been working on it, and last was January. She said, okay, we're going to fix it in 60 days. We're going to go over to Paymentus, a different a company that would charge us $20,000 a year, approximately, for credit card charges. Right now, we're hemorrhaging about $500,000 a year, or $600,000 a year. that the district is paying, and people that don't use a credit card to pay their bill are paying this. And I would really, really like to encourage the board to take an interest in this, because it doesn't look good. And why haven't we, because most everyone else has, okay, you want to pay with a credit. We just had a new payment thing set up, I think. And then you have to pay a fee to pay with your credit card. So the guy who's paying cash or check is not paying for your rebates on your credit card. And we all know, greedy bastard credit cards are out of control in this country. So you have to do something. And we thought it was a brilliant solution when they found this other company, but we just paid another, June 2nd, we paid another $47,000 to this Open Edge, and that's for the month of June. So I don't know how they paid that June 2nd before the month even happened, but I want to bring this to the board's attention. I'm not going to point any fingers. It's your responsibility. I hope, you look at those check, registers. The accounting system is very good with the district. They have it all laid out, and, can't be rocket science. There's got to be a solution. It's been going for months and months, and
municipal online. It took a little over 90 days to implement because of all the IT requirements, going back and forth with Tyler with our current software, which isn't very third-party friendly. So it did take some time to work out all the quirks, but it is, as of the 17th, up and running. So we should, last time we visited, we'd said we'd bring it back within a year, or we'd bring it back sooner if the costs exceeded $40,000. So again, we just went live on June 17th, so we'll monitor it throughout fiscal year 26. And if the costs do start to exceed $40,000, we're bringing it back to the board.
And the 40,000 a year, right?
$40,000 a year,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
Surely, they kept us apprised of this, so I think we're on the right track here.
I hope so, but it's $47,000 a month, last check, and $50,000 a month.
We're well aware of that.
And
but-
it was supposed to be taken care of in March of this year, 2025, so.
Well, that's when the board approved going over, but it took 90-plus days to get it fully
She
transitioned
told
over
me
with IT.
60 in January, but.
Hey, we're on the same page and the same track. Thank you.
Keep an eye on it.
Thank you, Nora. Ben van der Kar.
Good evening. Thank you to the board and staff for your service to the district. My family grows avocados and lemons and cherimoyas here in the basin, and several comments. One, with regard to just the status of our groundwater basin, I feel it would be great to have a simple update on the status of the basin periodically or at these meetings. Otherwise, maybe there already is somewhere, say on the district website or somewhere along those lines, where someone like myself who's curious if there's any latest and greatest updates could go to find that kind of information. Second comment with regard to the acre-foot groundwater charges, I would be curious to learn more how we compare with some of the other districts and groundwater basins with regard to that charge.
Point of order. So this is the public forum for the water district.
Yes.
So I think what you were going to speak on is the public forum for the GSA meeting.
A little later on.
Yeah, it'll be in a couple minutes. Yeah.
Okay, good deal. All right, well, sneak preview.
Sorry about that.
Is there any other comments you have on it?
No, I think that concludes it. Thank you.
You bet, thank you. I'll put you back on the other side too then. And then we got Charles Hamilton.
Intended my comment to be for the public hearing on the two charges, whether it's taxed or in the bill. I thought I wrote it up that way, and I'll wait for that if you'd like me to, or otherwise I'll give it to you now.
No, go for it now.
No, if it's
Wait for it.
if it's on the item.
Yeah, you want to item 8? Okay, we'll fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll follow the rules.
Just don't do it twice.
Stick around for longer.
We'll call you back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
Okay, then we move on to item number, hang on a second. Item number 4, the consent agenda. And we got 6 items. 6A, any questions from any board members? Okay, any questions on 6B? Any questions on 6C?
I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead.
Want to make them now?
Yeah, go for
Oh, I just noticed in one of the, I don't remember which one was which. 2 things. I would recommend that we put in a contract condition that all power equipment will be electrical. And this is sort of in respect to the noise that wind blowers make and gas-powered small tools make. I know that when I was Parks Director for the city of Carpinteria, we did implement that in our landscape maintenance contract for the citywide park system and right-of-way district, and it worked just fine. And I think it's respectful to the neighborhood to be as quiet as possible. So only if that's a possibility. The other thing I noticed is that one of the contracts had a provision where they wanted to be able to take pictures freely of the district facilities to use in promotions. And I would suggest that we add a clause that all pictures have to be approved by the district before release.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Bob, can we go back on that? Or?
Yeah, we already looked into, I spoke with Director Roberts on Monday, and we looked into those items, and we've changed them in the contract.
Perfect, thank you. Then we got item number 4D. Any comments? 4E? 4F?
One thought on 4F.
Go ahead.
And this may be something that's historical, and I don't have the benefit of that information, but I'm just curious, is there a liability coverage for this kind of service and otherwise indemnification between the parties?
Yeah, so under our professional services agreement, the indemnification is defined.
Yeah. It just doesn't show in that document at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that, I believe that item that's in the packet is just the proposal.
Right.
So we have a standard contract for professional services that we use.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's a comment, so if there's no other comments, can I have a motion, please?
Polly makes a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. This is Matt.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? The roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we go to item number 5, unfinished business, none. Item number 6, I'm going to adjourn the regular meeting of the Carpinteria Groundwater Sustainability Agency. And let's see, where is it? I'd like to call that meeting to order. We got public forum, number 2. Any person may address the board of directors on any matter within its jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. We have 2 specialty items. Then we have the consent agenda. Item number 3A, any comments from the board members? Item number 3B, any comments? Item number 3C, any comments? And item number 3D, any comments? If there's no comments, can we have a motion, please?
Polly makes a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? A roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got item number 4.
I did have
Sorry.
one
Chair.
quick interruption. Did Mr. Vandekar wish to speak at the public forum for this meeting, or were you for a specific item? I wasn't sure if he was coming back around.
Under the public forum.
What item did you want to talk about then?
Or did you get it all?
I appreciate that, Mr. Balch. You know, I had just really concluded my 2 comments there, and so if there's any feedback or response to those, I would welcome that. Otherwise, it was more just planting the seed, per se.
Yes, so with respect to the updates on the groundwater levels. We do have currently and have had in our water supply report some charts that show kind of the change over time. Our plan is to post those on the GSA website, but also start reporting them during the GSA meetings.
Great, glad to hear it. Thank you.
Thanks. Then we move on to item number 5A, consider final report of listening sessions of the well registration and metering policy. For information, Bob?
Yeah, so I'm not going to go over this. We went over it a couple of board meetings ago. What we did was we went through all the questions and tried to provide an answer or response to the questions and comments. It's in your board packet. I'm happy to answer any questions, but the purpose of those listening sessions was just to get feedback on the meter policy, which we'll be talking about next, and address those as we go, as we were developing the policy.
Any questions from any board members? That report, is it available online to our customers? Or?
The listening sessions?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, by way of the board packet, which is posted on the website.
Online, yeah, no, I thought it was very well done, so, thank you.
I'm getting attacked by ants here, so forgive me if I'm...
Want me to call them off?
Yes. All right, so this is just a summary of the draft GSA well registration and metering program. So, sorry. Or metering policy. It's in your packet if you want to go into the detail, but I'm going to try to stay kind of high. And I'm going to try to rush through this because we have a lot on the agenda and it's a lengthy discussion, but hopefully I cover all the high points. So topics to be covered will be the fee history for the GSA and of course, I think there were some questions about how the fees work, policy implementation timeline, registration of private well metering, installation of and use of flow meters, flow meter exemptions, and flow meter accuracy testing. So the fee history. So we started charging a fee in fiscal year 2023. So that would have been July 1 of 2022. And we based initially those fees on acreage of all properties overlying the groundwater basin. From 2023 to 2026, the fee structure evolved from parcel acreages to groundwater pumping estimates based on local crop factors. This is a method that we've used for a long time to estimate what the groundwater use is. And so we utilized that machinery to come up with estimated extractions, and then we calculated the fee based on that extraction for each parcel. During the latter years, I think 25 and 26, or fiscal year 25 or 24 and 25, we got a lot of community feedback that revealed some discrepancies in average crop factors. We had a feedback system in place that informed us whether growers agreed with our estimates, and we got a lot of feedback saying, no, this estimate is not right because of this or the other thing. And so as a response, we worked with both the GS PAC and members of the ag community to work towards a metering policy, and we added in a well registration policy with that. So that allows for a more accurate method where we get meter reads and we can base fees on those actual meter reads. Policy implementation timeline. So the well registration deadline will be March of 2026. So our intent is to adopt this policy at the next GSA board meeting, or perhaps if we can't get it done then the following GSA board meeting. The data management responsibilities, staff will manage data, submit direct charges and tax roll assessments for both Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. And then the policy adoption process was focused, as I said, on the next GSA meeting on July 23rd, but we can push it a meeting. So registration's an important first step for private wells so that we have the real information about all the wells that are out there. Up to now, we've gathered information from various sources, from the state to the county to individual farmers and surveys. But at this point, I think it's prudent to actually require well registration and start getting that information. We're going to require that be completed by March 31st of 2026. And we'll have some flow meter requirements. So we're going to require in this policy that all active groundwater wells, and I'll get into what an active groundwater well is, must have approved flow meters installed and registered by March 31st of 2026. And then any new well will have 30 days after the drilling to ensure all forms are submitted on time for the registration. So some of the required information for the registration program, owner and contact information requires details such as owner name, business name, mailing address, and contact info. We also would like to collect well specific information, including well depth, casing diameter, pump motor capacity, and perforation details if available.
I had a question on that. I looked at that list. It's pretty comprehensive on the data request. Is that just for analysis? I mean, if we're running flow meters, that doesn't provide us any.
Yeah, so in the interest of really understanding the basin, there's a lot of data gaps with respect to the GSP and the groundwater model that was developed during that process. Some of this information would be helpful for that. And so if it's available, we're trying to collect it during the registration process.
It's not a requirement of registration? I mean, the basics I get, but if they don't know.
Yeah, if they don't know, then.
Some real niche specific, it's, okay.
Right. Additional documents, registration process may require county well permit number, well completion report if available, and kind of a sketch of where it might be on the property. So maintaining contact or current contact information. So as you know, moving forward in time, properties sell and conditions change, wells become active or inactive. And so this section is talking about that. Owner responsibility. Property owners must ensure that the GSA has accurate and updated contact information to avoid delays and violations. So if someone sells a property and a new owner moves in, they're responsible to register the information with the well, with the GSA. Reporting changes in property ownership or parcel boundaries must be reported within 30 days on required forms. Billing responsibilities. So the staff are responsible for bills being submitted annually. Owners are responsible for their property fees during ownership and transfer. So if you have a mid-year transfer of property, then it's the owner's responsibility, whether it be the buyer or the seller of the property, to figure out how that's going to be split up over the period. So correspondence. So notices and letters are sent to owners specified mailing and email address, and so that's information that we want to collect. So owners, responsibly shared well owners must provide the primary email and mailing address for correspondence, and that has to do with wells that are shared. There are many wells that serve multiple properties, but the property the well is located is where the contact will be defined. CGSA role. CGSA is responsible for sending correspondence only to the provided address, not all shared well owners. So if there's multiple properties being served by a well, we won't send notices to every one of them. Okay, metering. So, what did I skip a slide? Flow metering, groundwater usage, private well operators must pay for groundwater usage starting in May 1st of 2026, based on metered extractions. Extractions will be determined with AMI compatible flow meters. The cost of the fee, so the cost calculation for the fee is simply the cost of the total budget divided by the total number of acre feet extracted. So that includes all private wells and the water district extraction. So if 4,000 acre feet is extracted in a given year, we simply divide the budget by that number. And then that calculation is the unit fee based on acre feet. Billing period, this is a little weird, but the annual billing period will be from May 1 to April 30. The reason we do this is because we have some deadlines that we have to meet to submit to the county assessor the fees to be charged. So we need a little bit of time between April 30 and June. So we're moving the billing period back about a month. Of course, privacy of data, all data received by private owners will be kept private and will not be released for any other use. Installation and use of meters. So the definition of an active well is any well that is pumping more than 8 hours within a billing period. And so if you can imagine, it's over a year period. If you pump more than 8 acre feet, which is not very much, then you do have an active well.
It's 8 hours, right?
I'm sorry, 8 hours. Did I say 8 days? Yeah. Accuracy testing and registration. So we'll require that all flow meters demonstrate a plus or minus 5% accuracy. And that'll happen through a testing program. And for wells that are non-compliant, but they are active, so in other words, if someone fails to comply with the ordinance or the policy, we'll basically be charging them an estimated extraction times the highest crop factor. And so the highest crop factors typically covered nursery, about 4 acre feet per acre. So we would use that calculation until they install the meter, and then once they install the meter, then we'd actually use the metered use. So there are, as I mentioned, shared wells where there is a well and then multiple pipes coming off of it. So the GSA will require a single flow meter, but that flow meter will have to be upstream of all branches. And, so it has to be installed, and then, the property owner will have to figure out, whether he or she wants to put sub-meters. So the property owner of the well, where the well is located, will be responsible for paying the fees through the tax roll. And again, they can install sub-meters downstream, but the CGSA won't own those or be involved in those. The property owner will manage them. And the fee division, because the owner of the one property is getting the bill or the fee, will be the responsibility of that owner based on, private agreements for sharing a well. So there is a concern about flow meters failing. Flow meters are mechanical or often mechanical devices, and they wear out and they fail. And so if a meter does fail, It's the owner's responsibility to report that to the CGSA within 30 days. And we recommend that well owners have an acceptable backup measurement method during the flow meter failures to avoid data loss. So often, ag operators are counting the hours that they're irrigating, and they know all the rates that the irrigation heads give off, and they can kind of calculate roughly what they used. So that's one method. Owner's responsible to ensure that the flow meter is maintained and operational at all times. So there are some exemptions to the meter program. De minimis users, SGMA defines de minimis users as those extracting 2 acre-feet or less of groundwater per year for domestic use. And so registration of de minimis meters, they are required to be registered, but they have to submit the form for registration, and then they're exempt from fees, and they're exempt, from the annual $35 flow meter exemption form submittal. Inactive wells and abandoned wells. So there are, I would say, half of the wells in the basin are either inactive or abandoned. Inactive wells are not currently in use, but they may be utilized in the future. The well must not have operated more than 8 hours in the billing period. They must adhere to state regulations. So there are requirements. If a well is inactive for too long, it's considered an abandoned well, and there are state regulations requiring certain things. Abandoned wells are inactive with no future use. So if you plan to never use that well, then it should be, per state regulations, destroyed. Registration and compliance requirements: owners must register their inactive or abandoned wells and complete the required forms by a specified deadline. There are many also unknown and missing wells. So often, a well that was built in the 1920s or 1930s has been buried, because of grading or something, or development. And, although they show up on USGS maps, they're not apparent in the field. We have not been able to locate them. Property owners may not be aware that there's an abandoned well on their property. But just to make sure that it is a lost well, we do require a site visit if there is a well identified on USGS mapping or CGSA mapping. And then once we take that site visit, then a lost well affidavit will be required from the owner that they did go through this process and the well was not found. So responsibility to notify: if owners ever find these lost wells, they're required to notify the GSA. Annual paperwork and photo requirements. So exempt well registration. Exempt well owners must submit their private well registration form and first annual flow meter exemption form by May 31st of 2026. Inactive well requirements: inactive well owners need to provide SCE bills showing inactivity for prior 6 months with their initial annual flow meter exemption form. Annually thereafter, they must provide the SCE bills showing inactivity for the full billing period. Abandoned well documentation: abandoned well owners must submit at least 3 clear photographs showing the condition of the abandoned well and its lack of equipment. And then, of course, de minimis wells have no additional requirements apart from submitting the annual flow meter exemption form. So testing, accuracy testing: it's important to maintain these meters in a range of plus or minus 5% of accuracy. Required accuracy range, as I said, 5%. Testing procedures, accuracy tests must be performed in situ, meaning installed in place, ensuring continuous and accurate groundwater measurements. Owner's responsibility, property owners are responsible for the cost of testing and any necessary accommodations for flow meter accuracy testing. And then the frequency of testing will be 5 years after initial installation, and then every 3 years thereafter. So that's kind of the highlight of the policy. It's a very long and dense policy. And it will be brought back next board meeting on the 23rd for consideration.
Any questions? Polly?
Well, after it starts, when we kick it off, and there's the deadline of, what was it, March in 2026, will we get periodic updates to say, X wells now are metered, or X percentage are metered,
Yeah, we'll
throughout the...
report on the implementation
Thank you.
progress.
Okay.
Anyone else? Carolyn, you want to, well, you got to give a speaker slip then to the Lisa.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, speaker slip.
I already gave a speaker.
That was for a different item.
Yeah, it's just quick, just jot down.
Carolyn, you want to step up, please?
Yeah, sure. I'm Carolyn Frary, lived in Carpinteria all my life. We raise avocados. And first thing, thank you. I know I've been one who's been pushing for the meter program, so I really appreciate it. I know that some growers, people who don't have their meters in yet, have had questions about, what is the setup that you're going to be looking for that'll work with the AMI ones. And so we have a very simple setup, and my husband or my son drew you a couple examples of how simple it is.
Okay.
So just for an idea
Thank you.
of that. We do have our meters already, and I know you mentioned about the meter failure for us, because we use the meters to inject our nutrients. We would know immediately when our meters failed, because we wouldn't be able to use our injection pumps. So just an FYI for you. Can I talk about the other? The other item was just on the fees, which you haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, why don't we come back on D then? That probably
Got it.
be helpful.
So, yeah, I just thank you for that. And I think it's really important that you do have a diagram or something that you are going to present to growers and people who do have wells before they go out and they start doing this, getting ready for your deadline.
Okay.
Thank you.
Robert?
Just two quick questions. The purchase and installation of those meters is financed how?
It's the owner's responsibility to fund those. There are grants available through the county of Santa Barbara.
And this program is going to start, everyone needs to be compliant in March of 2026?
Correct.
Okay, how come we waited so long before we ever did this, Evie?
Well, we just formed the CGSA in 2020, and we had, we had a period of time, about 2 years developing the actual plan to implement.
Mhm.
So that's 2023. Then we tried a couple of different methods, and we evolved to this final method.
Yeah, I just was curious why the cities existed so long, the wells have existed so long, they've never been metered till now?
The state legislature didn't give the authority to do that until till 2015, which they gave a long implementation period. So Carpinteria was missed initially and notified in 2019 that we were a high priority basin. So then we started developing the GSP, and then ultimately.
So this is a 7-year process from 2019 to 2026 to.
Well, this particular item, yes, it evolved into existence.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that it's been this long that no one ever thought to monitor or water usage that way.
We thought about it. It's just, you know,
You didn't have the legal means to do it, is that what I am understanding?
we didn't have the legal means to do it until 2024 when we had a GSP that was approved.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Scott, you want to speak on A or B or both?
I'm going to ask questions about the presentation. I don't know what.
Hey, go ahead.
First of all, how many shared wells are there?
That's difficult to say. I would say maybe 10.
10, there's 10 shared wells? How many active wells?
Somewhere on the order of 130, 140. That we, you know,
And the reason you don't know that is because there's some of these hidden wells, is that what?
yeah, we haven't had
Back
a registration program to confirm and document that this well, although it exists, the farmer doesn't use it or run it, or perhaps it's, you know, it's been broken down for a couple of years and they're just not using it.
Okay. The water table is as it is right now because people have been taking water out and you don't really know how much over time?
We do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
How do you know?
we've done analytical work for many years, so we've seen.
You don't have metered data.
No, we used a method to estimate the extraction based on crop use. So we looked at every acre of crop, and we calculate the water need of those crops. We look at the water meter deliveries to that parcel, and then we figure out the difference, and that's
Are
considered
there
our-
wells that are currently metered?
Yes.
How many are metered?
I don't know, those are, as Ms. Ferry just stated, she has a well that's metered. So those have been metered by the owner, so we're.
But we don't know out of the total, we don't know how many are metered right now?
No, I think the important thing is we don't use the CGSA doesn't use meters currently. We use estimating currently. So we're moving into meters now.
Okay. And what again is an exempt well?
An exempt well is a category of wells, like a de minimis well that uses less than 2 acre-feet per year, only domestic use.
Say it again,
2 acre-feet.
So it's based on a minimum usage?
It's defined in the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which is the law that kind of governs all of this activity. And it's less than 2 acre-feet per year, and water used for domestic purposes, which we have very few in Carpinteria. Most wells are ag wells.
All right, thanks you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Then we move on to item number 5B, consider draft well registration meters policy. Bob?
I think we just did that one.
Okay. Then we go on to item number 5C, consider final JPA agreement for information. Bob?
Yeah, so, I don't know, it was probably a year ago, we started on the process of amending our joint powers agreement with the 3 other members of the JPA or the GSA, the County of Ventura, the County of Santa Barbara, and the City of Carpinteria. And they were fairly minor sort of changes that help us in voting and how we, you know, are able to approve and get through policies and ordinances. So we had to get signatures from all of those agencies, and so it took a while because they all had to go to their boards. So the final version signed is in your packet. So
I saw it. Thank you. Any questions there? Are we good? Then we move on to item number 5D, consider adoption of resolution number 037, approving the GSA fee for the year 25-26, as established by resolution number 033, for operation and administration of the GSA pursuant to Water Code 10730D. And Bob, is there anything else you want to go over that? Because we have one speaker on that item, so.
So it's It's really a housekeeping item. Last year, we adopted a 2-year rate case, went through the 218 process. But it is required that we adopt a resolution for both years, even though it's the fee that we adopted last year. And so it's sort of a housekeeping item, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to discuss them.
Any board questions? Carolyn, you want to share any more concerns you have about the bill?
I don't know if this is appropriate, but Scott, the property that you live on now was all agriculture property. Which probably was using less water than all the residents, so just FYI. Huh?
What's your point?
Well, I'm just, as residential developments develop, more water is used if the property at that time had been agriculture. That's all. We raised dry lima beans on that. I used to thrash dry lima beans on that field when I was young. I know we all have concerns about fees. And so we've seen the fees go up in the first couple years. I think it was around $48 per acre.
Per acre.
And then we went up to the $68 per
Acre foot.
acre foot of water use. And then last year, we went up to $79. Again, it'll be $79 for the 25-26 year. And so our concern is, if the GSA plan is now set, and there was a lot of grant money that helped pay for the GSA, do you foresee that these fees are going to continue to go up? I mean, when the majority of your costs have probably been spent doing
Right.
all the research and everything with the GSA.
We're in the stage of implementation, so we develop a plan, identify, the issues, and then we implement that plan. So we're in the process of implementing, and as part of the GSP, there was a list of potential management actions and projects. And so, in the future, and we are trying to, get as much, like we do with everything, we're trying to get as much grant funding as we can. Prop 4 was passed last November, and so we expect grant funding to come in for Sigma-related projects. So we'll be trying to tap into that, but I can't say that, we're done. We still have to operate, we still have to collect data, and we have to, put it out.
Yeah, yeah. So just a concern, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. So then we need a motion, please.
I move we adopt resolution number 037.
Polly seconds.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Van Weerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got item number 6, Executive Director reports. That's financials. Norma, are you going to do this?
Yes, financials through April 30th, and as of April 30th, district has collected 116% of its revenue because tax payments are usually twice a year. April 10th, I believe, is the last one, but there's still some trickling in for any late payments that we're receiving from the county. And overall expenses are at about 61% through April.
Okay, any questions? Thank you. Then this meeting is adjourned, and then we start up again on we reconvene the regular meeting of the Carpinteria Valley Water District Board. Item number 8, new business. 8A, consider revisions to rules and regulations for information and MESA.
Yeah, so this is something that we do annually. We update our rules and regulations, so Mesa will make that presentation.
Hello
everyone. You should have a memo in your packet that describes all of the changes and briefly summarizes them. As Bob mentioned, this is just an annual update that we do, and how we update the rules and regulations just depends on the needs in any given year. The majority of the changes this year are just minor changes, text edits, minor clarifications, those sorts of things. I want to describe the 2 items where there's more substantive changes. So 16F, which is most of the way down on the memo page, and will also be red line track changes in the rules and regulations document. This is about irrigation meters. So this is the only item where there's really a change to what customers would experience. So what we're doing is updating the rule so that it is in line with our understanding of the state's policies. So to sort of summarize it, Water Code 535 requires new construction with permanent landscaping greater than 5,000 square feet to have a dedicated irrigation meter through the district. However, new construction and rehabilitation projects with landscaping between 1,000 and 5,000 square feet does not need a district irrigation meter. They can instead install a private submeter. Similarly, rehabilitation projects with greater than 5,000 square feet of permanent landscaping can also install a private submeter rather than a dedicated irrigation meter. So previously, some of these smaller quantities of landscaping had required a district submeter, so this would actually ease that burden to residents. So we're proposing to just come in line to the updated rules put out by the state between MWELO and Water Code 535. So essentially, we'd now be allowing private submeters for some instances where previously a dedicated irrigation meter had been required. So that is the change in 16F. And then 17 is the only other change where a customer might notice a difference in what is required of them. And that is just that if a customer asks for their water meter to be tested, it will be tested in a laboratory specific for testing. So it's not really a change in our practice. That is just a change in what the customer really might expect. And the reason that's done is because the level of precision of these meters is extremely high, and so it's just not feasible to achieve precision in the field, which would undermine the point of having it tested in the first place. So we just want to make sure it's clear that would be done separately, not in the field if a customer requires accuracy testing of their meter. And then the appendices, so we have 2 resolutions. Resolution that corresponds to Appendix D and E. So one is the capital cost recovery fee. This is an annual update that we do. We're not changing any methodology here. This is just an update of the established methodology. So that'd be 1169, I believe. And so you can see in the resolution and then also in, I believe, Appendix B of the rules and regulations what the updated amounts are. And then the other resolution, 1170, I believe, actually, I'm not sure. I know there were some updates to the resolution numbers, so hopefully those are still correct. 1170 is just a very minor text edit where we realized one of the default CIP language was a bit ambiguous, so we just wanted to clarify that. And so that is a minor text edit in Resolution 1170, but no change to what is actually being done there. I believe that is all of the changes to the rules and regs which I wanted to call your attention to. If there's anything you would like to ask about, I can answer questions.
I do have one point. I just wanted to make it clear that the Rate and Budget Committee did have an opportunity to review this on the 23rd of June and was given ample time to respond. So, thank you.
That's all I have on that item.
Thank you. That's on 8A. So then we move on to item 8B. Present cap tax roll versus water bill discussion. Bob and Mesa again. That's what I thought. Okay.
No preamble?
No, sorry.
Great, thank you. I think you can just go to the first slide. So I do want to start out by just providing some context. We have had several meetings. I think this is at least the fourth on this topic. However, I know there's members of the public who may not have had that background or may not have heard about this previously. So I just want to start with a little bit of context for why we're having this discussion. And then I'll get into the cost and the two options that we are considering. And then we will ask you to provide the staff direction on which method we should use going forward. So if you want to go to the next slide. So I just want to clarify why we're talking about this. So the discussion tonight is how we want to recover the revenue that we need for the CAP project. We're not talking about the CAP project itself, just the revenue recovery piece. However, I think it might be helpful just to give a very brief explanation. So the Carpinteria Advanced Purification Project, we call the CAP project, would take effluent from Carpinteria Sanitary District and inject it into the groundwater basin, which would just help us be more resilient, especially in times of extended drought, in our ability to extract from the groundwater basin. So this project hasn't actually been decided upon by the board yet, but if it is passed, we need a way to recover the revenue for this project. So the question is how we do that, and that's what we're discussing tonight. All of the costs that we'll be talking about tonight will be estimates. We have ideas of what these things are, but obviously the CAP project, those costs are not finalized, and then we also have to go through a cost of service study and Prop 218 to come up with actual numbers for customers. So just keep in mind that these are all really estimates at this point, sort of our best understanding of the numbers right now. So that's a brief schematic of the CAP project that I just mentioned, and you can see in the middle there would be the Carpinteria purification facility, and then the wells and extraction on the right. I know it's very small, so sorry about that. You can go to the next slide, Bob. So we have a general idea of CAP costs that we're going to be using as the basis for this discussion based on the, I believe, 100% design that we're at now. Again, these are not finalized costs. We do not have bids for the project yet, but these are the ballpark figures that we will be using so that we can convey an idea of cost to customers and for your decision making. So if you go to the next slide, that's basically what I just said. Please just keep in mind these are approximate costs. So we're trying to recover revenue for this project to fund it. So we have an idea of the percentage increase that we would need in revenue each year. So the table shows from fiscal year 24 through fiscal year 28, the percentage needed each year that we would need to increase our revenue to fund the CAP project. And so as you can see, the left two columns, fiscal year 24 and 25, we essentially have already recovered revenue for those years, so we could apply the revenue recovered for those years to this project. So what we're really talking about is the right-hand side, those three columns of future revenue collection to fund this project. But the question is, how do we do this? We have two methods that we're considering. If you'll go to the next slide, Bob. So what this table shows, it's very simple, but it's just saying the top row, we can recover this revenue through water bills, or the bottom row, we can recover it through property taxes. If we recover it through water bills, obviously residents would see a roughly 7.5% increase on their water bills. If we recover CAP through property taxes, they would not see that 7.5% increase on their water bills. That's all that 7.5 and 0 is showing in each row there. There are some caveats to this, of course. There are other costs. There's inflation that's happening every year. There's other changes in the district, which of course would still be reflected on water bills. Also, it's important to keep in mind that 7.5% is sort of a conservative estimate because it's on the higher end. In this case, that 7.5 is really likely including other costs, not just CAP, but to show sort of the higher end of the estimate, we wanted to say 7.5 for 0 there. So that's sort of the ballpark that you can think about in terms of increases to water bills each year through the duration of time needed to fund the CAP project. So if you go to the next one. So these costs here show by meter size what the cost would be to a customer to support the CAP project. So these would be implemented each year as shown by that 7.5%. So by the end of that period, you might see a $48 increase if you have a 3/4 inch meter. So it would be about $12 each year that you would see. It wouldn't be all at once. It would be incremental. So $12 the first year, and then by the end, it would be a $48 increase compared to where you started. We're envisioning these being scaled by meter size as fixed charges. Again, all of this depends on actually going through a cost of service study where we have a very detailed process to actually relate all of our expenses to how they would actually be attributed to the water bill. But this is what we're estimating. So there's variation here by meter size, but it's important to note there's not variation by customer class. We're not saying different customers would pay differently. We're just using meter size as a proxy for water use, demand on the system. That's why we scale it that way. Also, there's no variation here between the property tax method and the water bill method. We're saying these are roughly the charges we would expect regardless of method. We'd previously showed these numbers a little bit differently, which I think led to some confusion, which is why we've updated how we show this a little bit. But these numbers apply to both methods. There's really no advantage in terms of what you're going to be paying as a customer to one method or the other, regardless of customer class or anything like that. These meter size charges apply to both methods. So basically what I just said, there's no advantage to any customer class over doing one or the other. So I want to highlight a couple of considerations which we've talked about, I think, extensively at previous meetings. So I won't go into too much detail here, but I think it's important to remember why we're even having this discussion about these two methods rather than just putting it on the water bill. So these are considerations, essentially pros and cons for the tax bill approach. So starting at the top left there, if we put this on the property tax bill, one of the advantages is that the long-term beneficiary, the property owner, pays. There is evidence that having a reliable water supply is an asset to the long-term value of a property. The top right, the property tax charge may be deductible on your income taxes. We are not a tax professional. We're not your tax professional, so we're not going to tell you whether or not you can deduct it, but that's something that if we go this route, people should check with their tax professional. And then in the bottom left, property owners would be responsible for passing this charge on to tenants. So you could see this as sort of a con of this approach. If you're an individual landlord, this potentially could be burdensome to you, some of the feedback that we've heard from people. And then in the bottom right, staff would need to maintain a separate database of information for how these charges are applied to individual customers. We have things like 1 meter serving multiple parcels being served by 1 meter. So because tax bills are by parcel rather than by meter, it's an extra complication that we'd have to maintain if we decide to go this route in terms of how we charge each person and how much we charge them. So just something to keep in mind. Then if you go to the next slide. So for the water bill approach, I think these considerations highlight why we're even having this discussion about water bill versus tax roll. So in the top left there, obviously this reduces transparency concerns. If we put the charge on the water bill, there's no question of how much you're being charged by the water district or needing to aggregate different bills to understand how much you're being charged. However, the middle and the right are two potential concerns that we want to make sure people are thinking about. So this would likely be a fixed cost on the water bill. We hear that our water bills are complicated a lot. We understand that, and we want people to be very cognizant of this when they're talking about adding a new charge to the water bill rather than the property tax bill, that they understand that that could further complicate water bills and understanding them. And then on the right, as other people have mentioned, we are aware that a large portion of the bill, roughly 2/3 for people, is fixed charges. And so this would likely be a new fixed charge. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about paying for your water and control over your water bill, ability to reduce it through conservation, that this is essentially a new fixed charge if it's on the water bill.
I mean, it would be fixed either way.
Yes,
Right.
that is true.
There's no unfixed part of it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I want to highlight some of the public comments we've received. We get individual comments trickling in, so I think we've maybe received 2 additional comments since I made this slide. But overwhelmingly, the public is in support of the water bill method, so putting the charge on the water bill rather than the property tax bill. And then the bullet points there just summarize some of the rationale that we've heard for why people prefer that approach. And part of the reason I'm only summarizing the pro water bill comments is because we really haven't received any explanations from people who prefer the tax roll approach. They usually just say yes to tax roll and don't expand upon that. So many of these comments are getting at that the tax bill already feels expensive, that it is a large lump sum payment, and therefore people feel like increasing that might feel more difficult even than increasing the water bill. There's a point on there that I mentioned previously that it would likely feel difficult for mom and pop landlords, it's a term that was used, to pass the cost on to tenants. And then of course, transparency is one that we hear a lot. People feel like it would be less transparent to put this charge on the tax bill rather than the water bill. So I think it's clear, at least from the public comments that we've received, we don't know whether those are representative of customers in whole. But again, one of the reasons we're bringing this forward is just because it is important to at least consider these 2 different options and understand how the impact would vary to customers between them. I think that is all I have on slides. So we are asking you to make a decision and tell staff which method we should implement.
Okay. Any comments, Patrick? Or?
Well, I think we're at the stage where we need to comment. And I think you've done a great job over the last, several months briefing in this meeting for not just us, but for the public. So the alternatives are clear. My personal view is I'm in the camp of having a portion of the capital cost of this project on the tax bills. I do believe it goes with the land. This is like any infrastructure project. It moves with the property. It does add value. And I think the demographics of Carpinteria also speak to that notion. We did some questions and responses early on in the conversations about the makeup of the customers of Carpinteria Valley Water District.
The public comment supposed to be before the director's comment?
No, this is a separate issue.
They're just discussing the item. When we open the public comment, then we'll.
Then you can speak, Shirley.
Sorry.
It's okay. And one of the points that was researched showed that there's a pretty significant renter community here that are customers of the water district, that are not property owners. And of those properties that have that profile, there's also a pretty significant percentage of those property owners that are not residents. And so putting the burden on the user and the property owner that particularly isn't a resident getting the benefit of the value to their property just doesn't seem right. So I'm a proponent of at least a portion, perhaps the debt portion of the CAP project being applied to the tax bill, which is more directly tied to the property ownership than the user. That's my personal feeling.
Yeah, so, I've made a bunch of comments on it before. I was surprised to see the public comment lean so heavily one direction. I think they make a lot of great points I agree with, frankly, that the bills are confusing and putting this charge on a property tax, to me, only confuses the matter more. Then I've got to add this together. I don't think that putting this on the property tax bill is going to shift the burden to the owners or to the landholders. I mean, they're going to pass that cost along to the renters. They're not going to just eat it. So I think it's going to be passed along no matter what. I am a proponent of this going on the water bill, as confusing as it is. That's where we've put all of our charges that are similar in this matter, the State Water Project, which substantially is a similar project, right? It's a water project that provides long-term reliability, which is one of the benefits of this project. We've recovered it in that manner. I worry, although very slightly, about parcels that don't pay property tax, primarily the state. We've run into issues where they refuse to pay tax bills when we try to build that in that manner. I think the water bill is where water charges belong.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, in advance of public comment, of course. I believe more that this is a project that has general community-wide benefit, and that putting it on the property tax bill is more strategic, has benefits community-wide. I think this is the common method for financing, significant community benefit infrastructure. This is how we pay for our community college. This is how we pay for our local school district. This is how we pay for our hospitals when there's debt bonds for that. And I see this very similar, that it runs with the land, as Patrick had said. I agree with that. And I think it does provide even more clarity, because rather than being buried in your water bill, there's only a few lines on your property tax bill. They're very easy to interpret. I know exactly what I'm paying for the vector control district or the community college, or and we have some of the local school district bonds out there that we see every year. So for that and a lot of reasons I haven't articulated or don't want to take the time right now, I believe it should be on the property tax. But I'm willing, I see the difference between the public debt side and the operation side, but I still believe that even the operations is the function of this system that puts water in the ground. This is not the point when we pay for the extraction and delivery. This is a different level project.
So do we have a third option now where you divide them? I thought we were, not really. But it's up
If
for
that-
interpretation. Okay. So
Yeah,
where I
that's
stand
fine.
is I don't really feel real strongly one way or the other. I've been consistent to put it on the property bill, and I've said why, because one of the things that is mentioned in the putting it on the water bill, because one of the things about the property tax is that it is going to be more work for staff. But my bigger issue isn't even the transparency, because I can see how it could be transparent on the other side too. I believe that unlike City College and unlike the school system and unlike sanitary, our ratepayers get a monthly bill. And as complicated as it is, and we bend over backwards, everybody, to try and not make it so, but it is, and I understand that it is, that it should go on the water bill. But there is another issue, and that is, I was thinking about it. It isn't necessarily the transparency or the hiding for me. It's the consistency or the inconsistency. Why are we picking this one to put on the tax bill? Yes, I get the value to the landowner, and Matt and I have never disagreed on anything in the whole time we've been on the board. And this is not a good night for me to have a hot monitor that I'm wearing right now either. But in my case, I don't feel strongly one way or the other. And if we think that there is a crisp way to split it that is clear and that makes sense, I'd be willing to take a look at that. But I still stick with the putting it on the water bill. Now, if it does go on the property tax, the only thing that I think we should do is be consistent. Projects that benefit land, however small they are, not just because this is an enormously expensive project, go on the tax bill then, however small. That here's our definition of what should go on the tax bill, and we stick to it going forward. That would be my request. But for now, I'm for putting it on the water bill because everybody's going to see it, and we happen to send out water bills every month to our ratepayers, contrary to other people that other organizations where it's a twice-a-year thing on their tax bill.
Okay, well, personally, I think we should split it 50. That's my personal opinion, but I'll support whatever the majority wants. But the tax bill should support infrastructure investments, and I think that's what we're doing here. And the water bill should support the operational piece of this project, should be 50-50. Also, the other point, and Bob, maybe you can verify this, the 1,000 acre feet that we're gonna super purify and put back in the groundwater belongs to the water district, right?
Correct.
Right, that's point one, but point two being is all parcels, residential or farm, they all have a residential water meter because the homes on those parcels, they use city water. They don't use their private pump. So everybody has their investment in that part of the project. And the other point that was made earlier, the state water, we barely got here when that was approved, but personally, that should have been on the property tax versus an operating on the tax, the water bill. That was my personal opinion. So I think that said, I think we all pretty well expressed our opinion. So then we'll move on to item number 8.
Wait, we still have public comment.
Oh, sorry, Shirley. Shirley. We don't want to forget Shirley. Where's Shirley?
Then don't we have to give you guys direction to?
No. Shirley is the only one that asked for public
we
comment.
No, but I bet.
There's a point of order. We shouldn't give our instructions to staff until after we've heard from public comment.
Thank you.
And then we can repeat where we stand.
I didn't know.
My mind might be changed. We'll see.
We should be on C.
There you go.
Is that where we're going right now?
We should be on C1.
Okay.
Yeah, so item C, I believe, is where we're at.
Okay,
Are we
well,
up?
thank you. Okay, to rephrase this, we're on item number 8C. And so I'm opening the hearing for the cap tax roll versus water bill. Public hearing is open. Shirley, you're welcome to share your,
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yep, they're very interesting points, and I am leaning very hard on the water bill, because also the timing. This is a big new project, cap recycling, and when you're dealing with the county, there's a huge time lag in when they bill and what your expenses are and when your expenses change. So that's very confusing as well. And I think it's more accountable on the water bill. Even me, I paid my property tax and I didn't even notice what the recycle charge was at the moment. And also because, as pointed out by this gentleman, he really had all of our debt, $5 million a year debt on previous projects are all on the water bill. So when those are paid off, I would like to see that all together, that, look, this is off and this is on the same water bill. So I'm really in favor of the water bill, as most of the responses have turned in so far.
thank you, Shirley. Is there anyone else in the public that wants to comment? Just fill out the speaker slip, please, and we'll wait for you.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Charles had a piece.
you have to identify yourself.
First off, I'm not a finance guy, but Montlow, is that you? Mason. I'm sorry. The 7.5%, is that each year, or is that every 7.5 put on to 7.5, put on to 7.5? So that's compounded, so that the total would be,
The 48, if you're a three-quarter.
be what?
The $48 if you're a
Right,
three-quarter.
okay, but it's $11.92 a year, right?
Yeah,
Right, so I'm saying, so it's not
Simple numbers.
compounded, it's $12 a year each year?
So I just averaged it to give people a simple
Okay.
sense,
All right.
but it would not actually be $12 each year, it'd be less, and then it would look like more.
Right, okay,
getting to
working up to 48.
Yeah, the
Okay.
important point is 48.
All right. You can make very cogent arguments for either method of taxation. The one that I find that is the least attractive is the split, because as a homeowner, I'm being hit on my property tax, I'm being hit on my monthly water bill. I can appreciate the ramifications of the property tax, because perhaps my tax preparer could say, you will receive a bit of benefit here. However, consistency, if this is on the property tax, and my next question would be, then why the hell wasn't the state water project and the capital improvement, they're all of the same stripe. So to me, you're right, it's always clearly delineated. Property tax and the tax bill is not that hard to figure out either way. I see the line items, state water project, and there'll be just a third one. And in a scant decade, two of those are going to come off. and the only thing left will be the cap, right? It just makes sense to keep all three of these on the same bill instead of feeling like you're being, what now? All right?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll make an exception for you. Go ahead.
I appreciate it.
I already got your slip on the other one, so.
My question is, you're talking about financing $40 million, right? $40 million. $45 million. And God help me, I have an economics degree, but I didn't understand what 7.5% a year gets you to $40 million.
I'll make one, I'll make one comment. The state is lending us the money real cheap, so that's one thing the state of California is doing right at the moment, so anyhow.
Yeah, we have what's called a state revolving fund loan, which is about a 1.9%, I think, 1.7%, for 30 years. And
30
so-
years.
Yeah, so it's a 30-year loan for 40.
So it's going to go up 7.5% a year for 30
No,
years?
no. No, we're trying to, so we're ramping up. So starting in 25, we actually started in 24, but what happened in 24 was we were also dropping a drought charge because we were just coming out of a drought. And so that kind of offset, the release of the drought charge offset the increase of 7.5%. So 24 doesn't contribute anything towards the CAP project. 25 to 28 are the years that we'll be ramping up to get that roughly $4 million per year to pay for the project.
$4 million a year
Yes.
for 30 years.
Yes.
The other thing too was my comment about the splitting of this. Just to me, it kind of when you advocate that, it's kind of like a dodge. Look over here, you look over here. I don't know where the money's coming from. To me, one way or the other, the 50% thing is I think crazy. But the if it's going to appear on the bill, it should appear on the bill, I think. But anyway.
Thank you. So.
I think Charles had a slip.
Sorry, Charles, I thought I put you there, but go ahead.
I'm going to kind of chicken out on which I like, tax or the bill. But it's an issue that we struggled with in 1995 when I first started here as general manager. And there were discussions then about property tax. But anyway, what I'm here this evening just to do very briefly is just a couple of things. One, to provide a little bit of a historical context. The steps you're taking today about how to fund the ongoing costs of the proposed Carpinteria Advanced Purification Project are highly commendable. This is what I wrote. The process began about 10 years ago with a meeting of Dave Derflinger, with Brad Stein looking over his shoulder, Craig Murray, and myself, along with our respective agency elected representatives. We soon agreed upon each agency chipping in $5,000 to start the ball rolling. So there is an origin to this that goes back 10 years. And I'll have to say, having been in public policy and government my whole life, it's a burden that we have in government is to go through these procedures. And we generally arrive at a good course, but it takes a long time. Now, regarding the project itself, reflecting back on all of the capital projects that I worked on as general manager beginning in 1995, this one has the most potential to put the district on a sustainable footing. We didn't use the word sustainable 30 years ago. That kind of came into popularity when we started dealing with the effects of climate change. And whoops, what's going to be sustainable? We can't just depend on this water being there all the time. So it's going to put the district on a sustainable footing to secure reliable and safe drinking water for district customers into the foreseeable future. It's a little bit like a desalination plant. That water is always going to be there. That water that's discharged into the ocean is a really secure water supply. It's not like Kachuma, it's not like state water, it's not even like groundwater. But by putting this back into the groundwater basin, we're making that a more secure basin. So finally, a thank you. Thank you for your dedication. I'm speaking to all of you, and all that you do as directors for one of the most successful water districts I've ever known or worked for in the state of California, going back to 1982, when I worked at the Mesa Water District in Orange County. What you do is not easy. Nothing that you're doing is easy. And in many ways, a thankless task. So tonight, again, I'm thanking you very much. That's my kind of.
Thanks, Charles. So I'm closing the public hearing unless there's anybody else in the audience. Then we'll go back to director comments. I think we pretty well kind of expressed our individuals' desires or direction. Go ahead.
And Charles brought it up, and Casey brought it up, but boy, we did state water on the bill. And I want to say for the decades I've been on this board, I've always said that was a mistake. That the number of anguishing rate hearings we had where people are wanting us to kill state water and wanting us to change it or wanting us to reapportion how we pay for it and put their burden away and put it on others. It's been anguish for staff. It's been painful for the board. You're right, Charles, we don't get much thanks. Thank you for doing that. You of all people would know. So I don't think that we did it once by putting state water on the water bill makes it good to make the same mistake twice with this project.
But is that the only project that you would put onto the, what about all of the other infrastructure improvement projects that we have? Those benefit the landowner also, and we keep them on the water bill. So are you saying that we should move everything over, or are you saying that if we put the cap on the property tax, that all major projects, not, I wouldn't say major because they could be very, very cheap, but they could benefit the landowner, that goes on the tax bill too?
Those aren't being considered tonight.
Okay.
That question is not being considered tonight.
Okay.
But
Well, for me,
I don't think we're going to see a project of this scale with this broad-ranging benefit. Community-wide benefit. The value will run with the land. I know property up in San Luis Obispo County that they cannot get a water meter and they cannot drill a well. And you can pick that property up pretty cheap. A water supply that is available to the community-wide brings so much value to the land. The tenants suffer from that because they pay high. And so I think there might be a little margin of benefit to tenants who may not reside here long, won't be responsible for retiring this community-wide reliable water property benefit project. So the fit on the water bill isn't right for me. And this is not a popularity contest, I get it. The masses, when they react on a knee-jerk reaction, might say, I would rather have it on that water bill. I just, speaking from my experience, feel that's not the place for this. So I'll even be daring and say I'll like to make a motion to place the costs of this.
Oh, actually,
Yeah,
that's on the
David.
next item. We have to close the public hearing.
Oh, I thought we did.
We did, but that's okay. We got any more director comments?
Okay.
well, just that
You don't want a motion
for me, I know, but just for me, it's a matter of, yes, transparency, but also consistency, that this is a one-off that's going on the property tax, possibly just because of its size. That's what bothers me. And I know it's not the time to discuss future projects, but it's just the inconsistency.
And to respond to you, I think we'd look at each case individually, each project individually. This one is to me, it runs with the land.
Any more comments?
So I guess just in the interest of the next item might move quick. So I think that the biggest complication I hear about the issues of putting this on the water bill is that staff will hear about it, answer questions about it, have to interact with the consumers about it, which frankly is what I think is appropriate, right? We should get this feedback from them. They should be able to get answers to their questions on their bills. We shouldn't get, 60 phone calls in April and October. I would like to be able to understand my water bill by looking at my water bill and not have to take my tax bill out, add that all together with all my water bills, see what I'm actually paying. And I know that I can see the point that this could add value to the land, but I also see this project as as it's been described, and I know that is kind of shifting, but this is put and take, right? We're putting in 1,000 acre feet, we're pulling out 1,000 acre feet for the Carpinteria Valley Water District, right? This isn't you don't get a chunk of it as a landowner. This is for the Carpinteria Valley Water District to utilize on an annual basis. Essentially, it's put and take, and there are some additional ancillary benefits to the groundwater basin and therefore other customers that aren't necessarily part of the district, but I think this belongs on the water bill.
I just have one more comment. From the workload perspective, my understanding was, Meso, and I thought you were always talking about this, that there would be additional work involved if it goes on the property tax. Is that correct? Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to we're finished with director comments. Then we move on to item number 8D. Consider final decision for cap tax roll versus water bill. Bob, you want to share your thoughts?
This is the decision for action, so you've heard all the discussion and seen the presentation, so I'll leave it to you.
I'll move that we place the charges for the CAP project on the property tax bill for all the reasons stated previously.
Is there a second? No second, so then I need another motion.
I move the cap fees be placed onto the water bill, and that is how we proceed with the project.
Polly seconds.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Then Lisa, roll call, please.
Either way.
That's how you felt.
Director O'Connor,
No.
Director Holcomb,
Yes.
Director Balch,
Aye.
Director Roberts,
No.
Director Van Wingerden.
No?
Okay.
So motion.
Then we,
I'd make a motion in an attempt to resolve. Before making the motion, I do have one procedural question. Based on what we're doing right now, this guide, correct me if I'm wrong, but this guides the staff work going forward, leading up to an approval at a later point in time. No?
No, this decision is giving us orders to implement one method or the other. So whatever you decide now is what the staff will prepare to implement.
With that in mind, I'd make a motion to apportion the debt portion of the CAP project to the tax bill and the operations portion of it to the water bill.
I'll second that.
okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Lisa, roll call, please.
Okay, Director O'Connor,
Aye.
Director Holcomb,
No. Nay.
Director Balch,
Nay.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
and Director Van Wingerden.
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes 3-2.
Then we move on to item number 8E, cap update for information, and then presentation by Chris Melizian, WSC. Is he online or is he
Yeah,
here?
he's here.
Sorry, I didn't recognize you.
Ready? Good evening, directors. We'll try and be brief here as a CAP update, as we've continued to update this board on a generally a monthly basis. Next slide. So the only two items that we wanted to touch on today were our project bidding timeline and the outreach that has been done and is intended to continue over the next couple of months. Next slide. So this is our project bidding timeline. So we just, again, for reference, We do have 3 construction packages, but this summer we intend to bid out 2 of them. One, the AWPF for the Advanced Water Purification Facility, and then the second is the conveyance pipelines. Our third package are well drilling for both the injection and monitoring wells. We don't intend to bid out until next spring, largely for the purposes of managing the summer festival at the St. Joe's Church, not being allowed to be on their property the month of July. So rather than bid out now and then wait, because we don't think we can get that work done before July of 26, we bid out in April, we'll be ready to go come August of 26. So we've to date, we've received our bid set for the AWPF. So we received our 100% design. We had some minor comments that needed to be addressed, and now we have our bid set from the design engineer, Woodard & Curran. So we are effectively today ready to go out to bid on the AWPF. We still have some work to do on the contract itself, and there's another item on the agenda today with respect to that. But otherwise, intend to go out to bid here in the very near future. We've allotted around 60 days of bid window, which is very generous for projects, but of this size is not uncommon. And then after a short review period, intend to present the bids that we receive on the AWPF to your board on October 8th. Similarly, for Contract 2, we're between 100% and bid set currently. We did want to stagger that bid phase a little bit so as to reduce the burden on both the consultants who are administering the bid and also on district staff. So intend to bid that project out towards the tail end of the AWPF, but with the goal of having that bid in hand by the time we bring the AWPF contract for award, so that at least we have 2 out of our 3 construction contracts and a much more firm understanding about our project costs. But then with the intent of bringing that to your board at the subsequent meeting in October. Next slide. So we've done some recent neighborhood engagement for those HOAs that are, will be more impacted. So we met with Seacoast HOA on June 17th, largely to talk to them about the Linden injection and monitoring wells that are on St. Joe's Church property. They were also the same HOA that was subject to El Caro monitoring well that was drilled a couple years ago, 2 years ago now. And then on June 23rd, we met with the Meadows. And then on June 26th, we met with Mission Terrace, again, all to present the project, try to convey the construction impacts that are anticipated, that are really tailored to those specific communities, and then to hear their concerns. We additionally, our intent is to mail out postcards, bill inserts this coming month ahead of August 4th Planning Commission hearing with the City Council, or City Planning Commission. And then we intend to launch a sort of construction information web page or page on the CAP website in the near future. Additionally, we've had, I guess next slide, there's been agency coordination with the City of Carpinteria, attendance at Utilities Committee meeting on April 23rd. We had an Architectural Review Board meeting on May 15th. And then, as I noted just previously, City Planning Commission hearing scheduled, not firm yet, but scheduled tentatively for August 4th. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions?
So we're out to bid, did you say you're out to bid now on the phase one?
No, we could be. We have some wrapping up to do of our front ends. They're complicated. So the front end documents are what get attached to your technical specifications. It's really all the contracting language. And this project being what it is, all the various funding and financing sources that we have, it's complicated. So we're not using district standard front ends for that reason. We're using what's called EJCDC, or Engineers Joint Council of
Document.
Yeah, committee or something to that effect. But they're
A lot of letters in an acronym. that's
yeah, they're generally regarded a contract that's very fair for all parties involved and is quite comprehensive.
Is there a pre-qualification at all, or are you
We
planning?
don't have a pre-qualification. We didn't have a formal pre-qualification process, but we do have qualification requirements. So
Experiential kind of stuff?
yes, yeah. So the contractor needs to have built a facility such as this, an AWPF in the past. They need to have several $20+ million projects on the books. They need to have
Bonding and,
yeah, oh yeah, beyond
what,
that.
did you mention a bid opening date?
Not yet. That's still subject to discussion. If and again, we've got another item here on the agenda regarding our front ends, but should that take longer than we expect to, we can shorten our bid window a little bit. And
Give them
still-
60 days, they'll wait 45 before they look at it. So.
I mean, not to this degree, but yes, I understand your points. Yes, that's well taken. Yeah, I think we're sort of targeting basically about 2 weeks ahead of that October 8th as a bid opening date. That would give us sufficient time to review the bids, make sure that they're responsive, the contractor's responsible, and that also time to sort
You
of
do that after you open the bids.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because we didn't go through a formal pre-qualification process. Technically, anybody could submit a bid, but again, if they don't meet the qualifications that we specify, then they could be found non-responsible or non-responsive to the bid, and therefore we can reject it if they don't meet the qualification requirements.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Then we got item number 8F, consider budget change of $600,910 for a CAP design services contract with Woodard and Curran for action. Bob?
Yeah, so we, over the 2 years of, or maybe year and a half of design, we contracted with Woodard and Curran to do the design work. Initially, they had a higher higher proposal rate, but we negotiated them down by about 600,000. And over the period, there were things and events that occurred that required them to do additional work. We're at this point near the end, about 100% on the big piece of this, which is the AWPF. And we had 3 requests for budget change. So Chris, you want to kind of talk us through this? I know Chris has been managing this along the way.
Yeah, thank you. Right, so there's been 3 requests for amendments over the course of design, and we can sort of walk through them here briefly. And certainly if there are additional questions, please let me know.
Yeah, these
And
are
then-
these are handouts, by the way. You should have them on your.
and
They say
is
Woodard and Curran on them.
Craig also on, and then the design engineer is also on the call through Zoom. If there anything that I can't answer or he wants to elaborate on, he's available. So the first amendment request has got a lot of various activities and action phases that were included on that, but it was principally related to some of the value engineering work that we did last year, really sort of around this time. Director O'Connor, I know you weren't present for this period of time, but when we first received our initial 75% design level and with a cost estimate that came with it, our costs exceeded what was our prior budget. We've gone through a lot since 2019 when that budget was really put together, and despite our attempts to escalate from that budget, we didn't really have any kind of firm cost opinion until, well, really December of 23. And so when we saw that, we really needed to kind of take a step back and figure out ways to cut costs. So that process takes expense. There was really a shift in our kind of management approach to the projects. So there were a number of items that we sort of decided that we should change our design direction, and that's really kind of the result of why there's additional design costs associated with that. So there is, on page 5 of that First Amendment, there's all the things that we had directed the engineer to effectively change. And there's lots of other things that come with that that were on that amendment, including some permitting tasks, some additional surge analysis that was required, and just general management time. The second amendment was related to flood wall that was included in the design. So as a part of or flood gate, flood barrier. So as a part of the design, we determined that the sort of flood elevation of the greater CSD property exceeded what would be the floor elevation of the AWPF by, I think, roughly a foot and a half, maybe a foot. And so there was a design decision in front of us of whether or not we elevate all the critical facilities, all the electrical switchgear by that foot plus, a margin of error. Or conversely, there is a perimeter wall that surrounds the CSD's facility existing, with the exception of the drive entrance to the facility. So we can, as a part of this project, we decided to move forward with sort of a passive flood wall. So as floodwaters begin to rise that reach that gate, this gate will elevate and kind of prevent water from entering into the facility. Since this is a joint benefit between the CSD and CVWD for this facility, there was an agreement to split the costs both of design and of construction of that flood wall. So we've got an individual bid item in our plans, so it'll be very easy to understand the impact and the exact cost of this wall. The final being sort of kind of a culmination of towards the end of the project, understanding that this project has been more complex than what was sort of maybe originally on the outset. So, the design engineer, when they put together their proposal, they had made the assumption based on their, history and understanding of these projects, something around, and I know the number's in here, but 230 sheets, design sheets. And really, it takes time to put these sheets together. Since now that we're at bid set, we're at 320. Maybe the number was 250. We've added around 80 sheets of design efforts, and again, that's all real effort. So that was included here as a part of the last amendment that was recently submitted to sort of take us through bidding. Additionally, there was some work permitting. Really, their original task order sort of had a lump sum number of hours for permitting assistance, and they've exceeded those hours, due to permitting. And yeah, finally, as a part of the conveyance design, there was some request to evaluate alternative alignments, and that evaluation took some additional effort on their part. So that is the third and final amendment here. And yeah, there's some general sort of kind of contextual analysis that was included as a part of that staff report regarding, both, right, we had, as a part of the original negotiations, kind of brought them down, and we're sort of adding that back in some ways. This also, we kind of have accounted for overages in our overall programmatic budget. So we're not really we're not taking that $69 million and now turning it into 69.6. This is still kind of within the budget that we set. And finally, 10% of construction tends to be an acceptable metric for design costs. And even with this, I think we're at roughly 8% of estimated construction costs. So, even within the standardized metrics that we kind of use, nothing about this is maybe out of the ordinary, despite the fact that it's a, seemingly a larger number here that's coming towards you for a decision.
Yeah, I do have a comment. As before, I just wanted to highlight that by virtue of the scheduling of meetings, we did review these amendments in the rate and budget meeting on the 23rd of June. And we did grill pretty hard, as I recall, on several subjects. One was the value engineering element, sort of the history and the evolution of that effort. I won't say necessarily to satisfaction of everybody, but I walked away understanding it. The other point was around the flood wall and the sharing of the costs, which I think is a great outcome. The sanitary district hasn't stepped up much on this, and they are in this portion of it, so I think that's great. And the last bit was accounting, just to understand how, a change in the estimate affects the accounting and the cash flows, and got a reasonable confidence that's not an impact. So, at the risk of jumping ahead of the agenda, that would have come out in the rate and budget report, but I thought it was important to let you know what we thought.
That's helpful to know that this went through rate and budget. Thank you. I was going to. Sanitation's not paying for any of the $600,000. They're just paying for their part of the wall, splitting half the wall, going up and all that. Is that correct? Okay. Who in our team is watching the numbers versus the design changes and the change requests that have happened? Who's in charge of that?
So we hired WSC, which Chris is from, to be the owner's representative. So they are watching these costs and doing these analyses like Chris just discussed with you.
Who from our staff is making sure that we're...
I'm working with Chris directly on
Okay.
a daily basis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just add to Patrick's comments, both great points. We brought up the value engineering, which was frustrating that I think that process had to occur. I'm not sure why value wasn't a big consideration at the outset, but nonetheless, here we are. And then I did just question the kind of delay in these things rolling all into one kind of big change order. One of these has been lingering since, last summer. It's been over a year that we've had these, so it is a little frustrating to get it so far down the line. But those are my only comments from that meeting.
Anyone else? I'll make an exception, but you have to acknowledge your name when you get to the podium.
My name's Scott Grieve. As I said before, I'm the president of the Linden Meadows Homeowners Association. This presentation up here, where he goes by and says, "Oh yeah, we met with the Linden homeowners," and as if he just checked a box off and moved on. Do you know how that meeting went?
I wasn't there.
It didn't go very well.
Okay. I think you and Bob should sit down and work it out. I think.
No, I think this was a disingenuous thing. He just kind of
I'd like to answer that question. Yeah, we are aware. We were made aware.
No,
It didn't
we're
go,
aware.
and it didn't go well. I appreciate that. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, we are aware.
And we want to work it out. So Bob and yourself and the team should sit down and come up with a solution that works for your homeowners.
We've got a
and for the
solution.
dis- Pardon me?
We've got a solution.
Then
Move off of Meadowview Lane.
So sit down with Bob and work it out.
I didn't get the feeling at the meeting that there was anybody that wanted to work anything out. I got the feeling at the meeting that this was a done deal, and they didn't want any opposition. That's the feeling, and I've got signatures on a petition of 56 homeowners in the Linden Meadows that feel the same way. So I find this very disingenuous. Oh yeah, we went and we met with the Linden Meadows people. That didn't tell any story of what happened there, and how adamant those people are that they don't want to be put through this.
No, we understand your position. Bob made us aware of the concern of the homeowners. I suggest that you sit down with Bob and come up with a satisfactory solution.
Yeah, I think, we're not trying to be disingenuous. We are trying to work with you. All we ask right now is that we sit down and have a discussion about what your concerns are and see if we can.
Yeah, but you have a progress report. Oh, yeah, I checked off the Linden
No, we're
Marks.
not, this was,
I checked
this
that-
was,
checked
this
that
was,
box
this
off.
slide presentation was done before that meeting.
Okay.
We want to hear what you have to say.
We're gonna,
No, talk about.
we're gonna continue to say it as loudly as we can.
We expect you to. Thank you. So I think we're done with 8F. Then we move on to, for action. We need a motion. For the budget change.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the budget change of $600,910 for the CAP Design Services contract with Woodward and Curran.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? You need a roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb? Director Balch?
Nay.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
And Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Director Holcomb? Motion does not pass.
No,
We have three nays?
It's 3-2.
I think we had
Three
had-
yes.
We had 3 ayes.
Oh, there was 3 ayes?
Well, don't take my word for it.
Oh, Director O'Connor, Director Roberts,
And the
and
chair.
Director Van Wingerden. Okay, sorry.
Can I ask why there were nays? I didn't get it. It wasn't explained to me why.
I don't like the way the whole thing came about. I don't like the way it was presented. It did help me a lot that you guys went through it in rate and budget, but suddenly it just seemed so blasé. And we had these things here and this thing here and three amendments, and tonight we have to say, yeah, we're approving $600,000. That's what I was saying. Who's watching this stuff? These were these changes, those changes, time. I didn't. I was not confident and
Surprised.
And it was a surprise, and we've kind of been here before with some changes over the past year, and I probably could have gone either way, but I just didn't like the way the whole thing was handled.
Yeah, and I think, just like I commented a little bit, the significant part of this is from over a year ago, and it's mostly around the value engineering, which I think was either a lack of direction that, we don't want the most expensive options available. We want something that's has value to it. And then these all sat for a long time, and then I just get I don't like that we knocked it down $600,000 and we somehow found a way to bump it right back up. Just, those are my two primary ones.
Bad taste in my mouth.
Fair enough.
And just to
And we weren't
make
even
it,
looking for a way.
That's what scares me.
I just want to make I want to make a comment here. So the way that these projects evolve or kind of unfold, is you're going through a process of design. Everything's not exactly as you thought it was during the process, and so you have changes. I did sit on this First and Second Amendment because I was thinking, okay, there's going to be a final amendment to true everything up, so let's just wait for that and we'll bring them all together. I instructed the design engineer to continue working because I thought we could resolve these, and so it's on me if that's an issue.
Fair
And
enough.
I'll just add, I've witnessed some large public works projects, and I have often remarked how many of these things come forward as investigation of the premises or new issues, it doesn't impress me as being uncommon. It's not pleasant, but it doesn't seem to be extraordinary to me.
Okay.
just real quick, I wanted to clarify, just for the record, that the motion does pass 3-2.
Thank you. We go on to item number 8G, consider engagement of special counsel Mary Beth Coburn of Best and Krieger LLP for CAP construction contract review. For information, Bob.
Yeah, as Chris alluded to earlier, we're using a front-end document, which is the contract part of the document, from the EJCDC. And, you know, the EJCDC front end is generic. It's just, you know, typical things that you think about as you're doing large public works contracts. But what's different here is we have a number of different funding sources, including some of the federal funding sources. And those federal funding sources have all new requirements for, you know, public works contracts and grants, which those federal funding are, their grants. And so there's a high risk associated with this type of project that's funded, that some of that money will be taken back because we didn't follow precisely the requirements of the new laws. And so we felt that we should get an attorney to review the front ends, and Mary Beth is a sort of a focused attorney in this area. That's pretty much all she does. She's working on the Sites Reservoir front end, so she's got some talent behind her, and so we felt it necessary to engage her. Time was of the essence, so we did engage her, and part of that engagement involved a conflict of waiver. Or their firm, BBK, represents Sandy Inez ID1, and so the waiver is that we waive them representing, BBK representing us on any water rights related conflict between Sandy Inez ID1 and Carpinteria, which I thought was fine. I don't anticipate that we're going to have an issue with that, and we wouldn't use BBK to defend in that situation. We have general counsel to do that. And so this is really an information item. You could ratify my decision as it was made, but it is authorized.
Right, because we had a discussion, so, I mean, I feel more comfortable if we have a motion to confirm that, but either way, we're fine.
It's up to you.
One motion.
Yeah, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to engage Mary Beth with Coburn Best and Best. And how much money was it for, Bob?
It's a legal engagement, so it's just the fee sheet that's, I think, in the board packet. So
Right, yeah, it was, but wasn't there a ballpark on this thing?
I don't believe she didn't give us a ballpark, just a fee sheet. And, you know, I'm not sure, Chris, if you have any idea how many hours this will take.
I do not, but we're also only asking her to do a review. If this was a preparation, that would be much more extensive, but the front ends have already been prepared, and we're just asking her to review it. So I expect it to be, and also given the timing that she was asked of and she tentatively agreed, there really just aren't that many hours between now and then, which was really July 22nd, of which she's gone for a week. So that's
But
the
you expect
context I can provide.
But you expect to be less than $20,000?
I think so, yes.
Can I make a suggestion that we amend the motion to reflect a cap?
Yeah.
To be at Bob's level of authority?
Yeah, 20,000.
So moved. I mean, yes.
That's the motion. And
Revive the second, yeah.
Motion the second.
I've got two quick questions. Did our council review the waiver?
We asked her, and they recommended we get a specialist.
And did we?
Yes, that's.
No. Did they review the waiver for the conflict?
Oh,
We did,
Okay.
yes.
And then I guess I'm a little confused on why we vote on these things that have already occurred. What are we trying to accomplish with these?
well, so when I have to authorize something under my authority, it's generally because time is of the essence. So I prefer to come back and at least inform the board. If the board wants to ratify that decision, that's better.
Better for who?
Better just to show that the decision was disclosed and that, you were aware of the decision.
And it's in line with our procurement policy that states that we has to come to the board with an information item.
Yeah, with an information item, right? Not for action necessarily, but
Right.
that's
but
my
for-
confusion, I
For
guess.
transparency, but.
Yeah. Thanks.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Then roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
And Director Van Wigerden?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we can move on to item number 8H, public hearing on status of the CVWD's vacancy recruitment and retention efforts in compliance with Assembly Bill 2561, Government Code Section 3502.3. So this is a public hearing. Norma,
Yes.
you'll make a presentation?
Yes, thank you. So in your board packet included a more detailed staff report, but I'll just present a brief presentation on AB 2561 that addresses vacancies for public agency employees, and this bill became effective January 1st. So the legislative intent of AB 2561 is to increase transparency regarding vacant positions in public agencies. So starting January 1, 2025, public employers must hold a public hearing to disclose vacancy statuses and recruitment efforts. High vacancy rates can affect service, delivery, and employee workload. This bill ensures that the public is informed about how the district is managing these challenges. So here's the current vacancy statistics. So for fiscal year 25, we had 23 authorized full-time positions. The overall district-wide vacancy rate was 13%, and while the rate within the bargaining unit is at 18%. In recent years, we've faced challenges in both filling positions and retaining employees, primarily due to below-market compensation. To address these vacancies, we've implemented several recruitment and retention strategies, including advertising job openings in various platforms, launching a new internship program, and participating in career fairs, both in Santa Barbara County and Ventura County. Our retention efforts include organizing team building events and providing staff training and development. Additionally, a compensation study conducted in 2024 led to salary adjustments in fiscal year 25 and again in 26. However, despite the fiscal year 25 market equity adjustments, we recently lost 2 additional employees to neighboring agencies offering higher pay for comparable positions. So although there are no procedural barriers, below-market salaries continue to pose a significant challenge in attracting and retaining talent. Regularly updating the district's compensation study every 2 years would help ensure that salaries remain competitive and attractive to candidates. So in terms of fiscal impact, there's no direct financial burden from implementing AB 2561. However, it does require some staff time and adjustments to just HR tracking processes. So in conclusion, we recommend conducting a public hearing and receiving and filing this report to comply with AB 2561 and enhance transparency in our staffing efforts. And then I will also mention that I did speak with the SEIU Local 620 to find out if they would wanted to make a presentation, and they declined, provided them with the statistics, and they declined to make a presentation this year.
Okay, so then I'm going to open the public hearing. So there is no public comment from anywhere then? Norma?
No.
No public comment. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Then I like to have at least some discussion between the 5 of us. I know that this is part procedural, but also normal corporate America. If they keep losing their good employees, they deal with it. So what are we going to do about it? I mean, I know this has to be done in public, but it's really, I don't appreciate that. So.
Yeah, I mean, just comments from the report I read was great. I think this is actually a great assembly bill. I think that went through. It's great to bring up in a formal setting. it is so frustrating being in this community and trying to retain good employees. I think we're making strides in the right direction. I think it'll continue to be a hurdle for probably the foreseeable future. The only thing that I think would be interesting is I know that there's no direct financial impact like for preparing the report, but I did see like in the engineering report, I think that like we were struggling to put in some infrastructure because of the lack of manpower, and just kind of seeing like how many times that pops up, or might be a good way to quantify like the additional hidden cost of not having employees. I think it was outsourcing for a fire connection or something somewhere where we just didn't have the manpower was interesting.
Yes, I did speak with our operations manager, so you might have noticed it on his report at the very bottom. He included a section now on staffing, so he'll continue to do so every month. But in just having a discussion with him, he did mention, and some of you have been on the board for quite some time, remember that we used to outsource a lot of our work to a contractor, and we were paying upwards of $400,000 a year because we didn't have the manpower. We were able to cut way back on that once we were fully staffed. But as recently as May and June, we were down to 2 people in our distribution out of 5. So his concern was, hey, we're going to ramp right back up with these outside contractors because with 2 people, we can't get anything done. Not only that, but that impacts the on-call rotation. If every other week somebody's on call and they can't do anything, flex employee morale. So I think it as you said, Director Balch, it's great that the board is hearing this, because that's one of the questions in meeting with staff that they said, hey, is the board aware of this issue? Well, yes, they will be now every year, and as part of the operations report, they're going to be made aware of it monthly.
Yeah, the only comment I would make, coming from a corporate environment for a good part of my career, I think a lot of this is self-evident, and unfortunately, I think the demographics of Carpinteria doesn't allow us to get to where we would like to be. Not because of rules or not having the rules. It's just the nature of, a small beach community with high standard, high cost of living and, very awkward, economic environment. Having said that, there's also, I think there's a conflict in a way between this legislative intent and the nature of bargaining. We can't speak publicly about, it's all closed session stuff about how the bargaining works. So at the risk of tripping over that line just a tad, I would say, from my experience in the short time on the board, we've made a lot of efforts. And the board, prior to me being on it, made a lot of efforts to negotiate in good faith and to improve the conditions and the benefits so it feels like we're doing all we can. This just supports our ability to talk about it in a way. So that's my sense.
Go ahead, Molly.
I just wanted to add, it's not just us. I see it everywhere, the different things that I've been involved in. It's just the location of carp. And the Ventura people they'll come up here, okay, if they have to, but they would rather work in Ventura. And the Montecito people were able to draw from Santa Barbara. And if they do pass us by and say, well, I'll go to Montecito, maybe they are being paid more. But it's not just this. It's not just us. It's other industries within this area that are just having such a hard time recruiting.
It's the nature of being
it's
at
just
the end
physically where we are.
Yeah, the issue is just retaining them. And the 2 people that we lost recently, just in doing their exit interviews, they said, oh, we would love to stay in Carpinteria, but if it was just $1 or $2 difference, but when you're talking $10, that makes a difference. And when you look at our range for, utility worker or water utility worker or one, compared to that agency that they left to, our range ends where theirs begin. And it's because it's a much larger agency, so they have the ability to do that. So it's difficult to compete with that. And that's been our issue for the 26 years I've been with the district. It's nothing new. It's just a larger agency. But I think that employees do, and speaking with them, recognize that the board definitely is, with the compensation study and the market equity adjustments that you've made are making strides towards that. So I think they understand that.
Right, so then as far as in the exit interviews, obviously there's probably a number out there that they would share with you what they would need to stay here. Is that
it would have to totally redo that range because, like I said, ours ends where their begins. So then once you change that range, then you're affecting everybody else because then you have compaction and you'd have to redo the range for everybody. So that's why I think it's suggesting to updating it every 2 years. For example, if the district the first year gave a 3.5% COLA. Other agencies gave a 5%. So the first year we're already behind. The second year we gave a 3.4% COLA. Other agencies gave a little bit over 5%. So the first 2 years, then you're behind the curve there. So updating every 2 years would at least catch them up quicker than waiting longer.
Is it an alternative to update it every year? Or is that just a burden?
I agree, because bottom line is, if they're just going to pick up our good people, that's not acceptable. So what is the cost of an annual?
I did speak with some at a training I was at last week that it's much lower because the study we already did, we did job descriptions, we did the whole structure of the organization, whereas now it would just be updating like a salary survey. So they did say it would be substantially lower. I haven't got an official quote, but they did acknowledge that it would not be as much as what we paid.
Yeah, maybe a way to think about it too is there's a scope that's annual, and then there's a scope that's biannual. You could
Right.
parse it out a little bit.
But if we go to an annual review, then it would give us a pretty good idea what our sister agencies.
You're just more nimble.
What they're poaching. So it is.
And again, you may not address everything annually. Is maybe an alternative to keep the burden down for you guys. Just a thought.
Is there enough support? I mean,
Information doesn't hurt, so.
Pardon me?
Information does not hurt.
What do you think, Bob? Once a year?
I mean, I think it's important to keep the data fresh, whether it's once a year or twice or once every 2 years. I don't know that it would change that much. Recall that we're in a 5-year contract, and so we are limited. Although I think if we, requested the union meet us to discuss a pay increase, I don't think they would turn us down. But.
Yeah.
No.
You want to chair that? No.
Well, the 5-year contract is sort of compelling, so.
Right, but also if you have X amount of jobs that we have to go to an outside contractor, and I have no problem with these outside contractors. I mean, they're ready when we need them and they do a good job. But, if you're looking at $400,000 here, and if we can solve the problem with $100,000 here, to me, that's...
Another thought that comes to mind is there a trigger that we could imagine, that if the situation deteriorates, where does the water level, so to speak?
How many people want to lose?
Yeah, right. Where's the ring in the bathtub,
Yeah, I mean, I think subjectively, staff has a pretty good, sense of whether things are going poorly. I mean, this report will be helpful because we can communicate that we think things are going poorly. Recently, we lost 2 employees fairly close in time, and both of them went to the same water agency, which is paying quite a bit more than we pay. And so that gives us pause because we realize, okay, well, we did this salary survey in 2024, and in 2025 we lose 2 employees because the salaries are still well below the other agencies. And that, that could have been some timing with respect to when we did it and the numbers we were using. But I think for sure, the staff is a good resource to determine when there's apparent problems, but you should have, at least every 2 years have a update of those numbers.
Was Goleta in the salary survey?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They were.
Yeah, and remember, we focused on the median of pay ranges, and so we're in the middle. So there are going to be agencies like Goleta and Oxnard that are just we're not going to be able to pay as much.
Right, but if we have a review every year, we can start dealing with the Goletas of the world, and also our employees know that we're serious about retaining them. Yeah. So if we can get a copy, because also I think if you do it yearly, it's going to be, yeah, X amount of dollars, but if you do it every 5 years, that's going to be a huge number every 5 years. I bet if you do it yearly, it's not going to cost you any more than a 5-year. Well, let's, I mean, we can, when the information is available, let us know what it costs to an annual review. We know what we paid for the last review, so.
Would you use them again?
I'd probably go out to bid. to
Thank
get
you.
some, yeah.
That's what I would do too.
Okay, we'll move on. So, actually, we were at, director comments. Any more comments? Then I believe we need a motion in here, Bob.
I move to receive and file the presentation on Assembly Bill 2561.
Polly seconds.
We got a motion, a second. Any more discussion? The roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb? Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Van Wigernen?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we go to item number 8I, consider adoption of resolution number 1168, approving the amended fiscal year 2025-2026 operating and capital budget for action. But I believe the budget committee already went over this. Was it just?
Wasn't the last meeting.
I don't believe we took it to the Rate and Budget Committee.
Okay, no problem. Anyhow, that's what's on the table. So, Bob?
Yes, included in your board packet is the district's proposed amended fiscal year 26 budget. So if you recall, in September of 23, the board approved a 3-year budget for fiscal years 24 through 26. And in December 2024, staff completed a mid-year review of fiscal year 25 and then carefully developed an amended budget for fiscal year 26. Next slide. So the amended budget, one of the major changes there is reflects a decrease in water sales of 619 acre feet, going down from 4,219 acre feet to 3,600 acre feet, and that's equates to about a 1.2 million decrease in revenue. Overall operating revenue, again, is projected to decrease 6% or 1.2 million due to lower water sales, going from 19.1 million to 17.9 million. The amended budget also includes updates to various operating expenditures, and some of the notable changes are an increase in personnel expenses of $556,000, and this is related to several items, being the succession costs for the retirement of both the district's general manager and operations manager, the leave cash outs related to those retirements, the second half of the market equity adjustments resulting from the compensation study, and then scheduled step increases and a projected 2.5% COLA. Also an increase in utilities of $239,000 related to increased electrical costs for power of pumping wells and pump stations. An increase of professional services of $111,000 related to legal services. Decrease in state water, specifically Department of Water Resources variable costs of $155,000, and then an increase in water treatment of $760,000 related to the Cater water treatment plant. The original budget assumed a 70% 30 split with Montecito, but based on Montecito's actual for fiscal year 25, the assumption was changed to 87% Carpinteria and 13% Montecito, so it made a big difference. Overall operating expenditures are projected to increase 15% or 1.6 million, going from 10.5 million up to 12 million. Some other operating expenditures are general and administrative, decreasing 31,000 related to lower fees for credit card processing. Joint Powers Authority increasing 50,000 related to an increase in Combs budget. And other expenses, specifically general insurance, is increasing 72,000, and this is just to align with actual costs, which have consistently exceeded our budgeted amounts. Capital expenditures are at 1.1 million, and it's an increase of $10,000, resulting from just a shuffling of projects, and the summary and detail sheets are included in your board packet for review. And that concludes the presentation. If you have any questions.
I do have a thought. At the risk of being disruptive, can I make the suggestion that we do take this through the Rate and Budget Committee meeting and do it on the 17th, the proposed date of the 17th?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
I think procedurally it would make sense to go into a little bit more detail and put that on the record.
Okay, thank you. Then we go to item number 8J, consider revising engagement amount of CLA for fiscal year 25-27 audit period to include the district's component units, the Carpinteria GSA audit from 141,950 to 189,415. That's for a 3-year contract. And for action, Bob.
Yeah, I'll have Norma present this.
Yes, so if you recall, I believe it was last month or in May, with the board approved engaging CLA, and at that point we discussed coming back with the CGSA item, and in that time we determined that the CGSA is a component unit of the district. So CLA provided an updated proposal that includes audit costs for the district, the CGSA, as well as a single audit. And that's why the amount is $189,415. Of that, $48,825 is related to the CGSA, so will be reimbursed by the CGSA. So this will be engaging the services of CLA to conduct those 3 audits.
I had a quick question. I was just curious on how or why BPW didn't consider us a component union and CLA didn't either until we went back with questions about the cost for doing it separate?
So CLA, until we actually met with them after the board, once we asked them to look at their CGSA costs, they consulted with their national, I guess, partner, and we went, Bob, myself, and our senior accountant met with them and went through a GASB checklist to confirm, and then they checked again with their national firm, and then we checked with other GSAs in the state of California and determined that all of them were component units of that other agency. So
So they all are, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know that I really got a clear answer from BPW in terms of why they didn't, but.
And it'll be like essentially 2 separate audits still, just.
Yes, they are going to be
Other-
presenting separate financial statements for the CGSA, yes.
Thanks.
Okay, any more questions? Then we need a motion, please.
Paula, make a motion.
Second.
We got a motion, a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item number 8K, consider resolution number 1171, establishing a new checking account for CAP for action, Bob.
Yeah, so this was a decision that we made to make the management of the grant funds and the loan proceeds for CAP easier. In other words, keep a separate account of all those proceeds so that we can manage those. And so we have to come to the board if we want to open a checking account. And so that's what we're asking today.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Then we got 8L, consider appointment to the following Joint Power Authority, JPA, Consumer Operation and Maintenance Board, currently Polly Holcomb, alternate Kees van Wingerden and Patrick O'Connor, and then this for action, Bob.
So I'd like to nominate Patrick to replace me.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Yeah. I think we need to also
The alternate?
approve an alternate for the JPA.
Yeah, I'll be alternate after Patrick. I mean, sorry, if he is the chair, he is the, sorry.
That's what I said. I said you'd be Patrick and then you'd be the alternate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's two alternates listed. It might be why we're talking about it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that's a
I
good
guess I'm
question. No,
after.
I was wondering
Case,
about.
Case 1 and 2 alternates, so I'll go after Case. So the first alternate would be Case, and then if neither of you are available, then I'll do it.
That's the motion. We need a second.
Second.
Okay, same motion. We got a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor,
I accept.
Director Holcomb,
Yes.
Director Balch.
Aye.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director Van Wierden.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
I don't think you have an option here, Patty. I'm just kidding.
No, you're going to love it.
I am,
And you wanted it.
just to comment, I am eager to contribute, but also I'm very interested, in the infrastructure particularly. So I think it's a great fit, and I'm more than happy to do it.
It'll be good. Item number 9, director reports. We got wage and budget committee meeting, June 23, 2025, O'Connor and Balch. Anything?
Yeah, I think we covered, actually,
Right.
by virtue of the overlap of the agendas, so I think all the issues were already discussed.
Perfect, thank you. Then we got 9, B and C, Polly.
Thank you. Yeah, so we had our operations report, and on the Laurel Tunnel access house improvements, it's going well. At the day of the meeting, the actual emergency door was being delivered, and so that will be installed middle of this month, making it much more safe to have our teams work in that tunnel. So that is good news. B, the Laurel Basin Outlet Works intake structure. The Bureau of Reclamation had made some recommendations after a dive in 2018, and we needed to make some improvements. We put out an RFP to 5 vendors. Many of them are regulars, but most of them responded that they were so busy they just didn't have the time. So we got one back, only GEI. They are known to us. They've worked with Montecito Water District. And so we agreed to work not to exceed $100,000 to doing a lot of improvement, but also replacing the bearing plate that was corroded. And apparently this is going to fall under the Cater JPA between Carp and Santa Barbara and Montecito. That's my understanding. And so that was done. The Sheffield Tunnel pipe assessment continues to be. That was really more of just an update to make sure we know where we are. Again, there's 105 joints. It's a 6-foot tunnel. The way the joints are corroded, it's kind of interesting. At both ends are where the majority of the worst joints are. Also, at both of the entrances, they're highly problematic to reach. So Joel is still, a couple of plans is, one of them is to working with our staff to install a SCADA system to watch for water intrusion. Another is trying to video the entire pipeline. The big fix, of course, is lining the pipe, either inside and out. We did have a contractor come in on their own expense just to take a look at it. The estimate was $5 to $6 million. Staff was concerned after we didn't yet have their report. After they were completing their report, it might even be larger than that. At our board meeting, just to jump ahead, we approved for staff to apply for an IIJA loan. This is part of the IIJA, where the Bureau has been making a lot of loan applications on things that they would like to get done. We just tossed around, just apply for the loan. It doesn't mean that we have to accept it if we get it. We know that we have some reservations. I know you do, Bob, about going after a loan like that, as does Montecito. But we said, let's learn the ropes. If it's money that we could maybe get, maybe use it for other things, for the tunnel, who knows? Let's at least just learn the ropes on how to apply for this type of loan and see what happens. It would be a 30-year fixed. We know nothing else at this time. Now, I know you've been kind of involved at the technical level. Is there anything else that I didn't touch on? So it's still very much investigating, and at the time we had no report from the vendor on how bad they thought that the fix was going to be.
I think it's primarily at the joints, the flanges and the bolts are starting to corrode, and so separation might occur. And so one of the thoughts was line it just locally between, where the troubling flanges are. But it sounds like it might be expanding from there.
Okay. Then regarding the 2023-2024 storm repairs, we approved to send to the board for approval, working with Peter Lapidus, not to exceed $87,000 on a Glen Annie fix from the storm. Same thing from Laurel. We kind of, it's not that we gave up on FEMA, but we've reached a point where we would rather continue to work with them on one of the larger Alaro Reservation multi-benefit fixes. And what we did was we put 2 of the fixes in kind. In other words, we're no longer going to wait on FEMA. We have to fix it. Let's just get it back the way that it was at our cost. So that's what we did. Let's see.
Are you able to claw back costs in
Pardon?
that case? Are you able to claw back through FEMA, sunk costs?
You know what? I don't know. We just hadn't heard from them on these 2. We've gotten all of our money for 2023. We're working with them on 2024, but it reached a point where the little ones that we can fix just on our own to get back the way they were, let's just do it because nobody's answering us. And it's a far cry from the years you've heard me say how well we've cooperated with FEMA, and they even complimented us over and over again. Oh, you guys are so great to work with because we have all of our ducks in a row. And we just said these have to get fixed. So between not hearing from the Bureau, with their short-staffed and morale's bad there, we just decided to move it along. Fire protection plan. Bendy White mentioned this several years ago when he was on the board, and he talked to Kristen about it, thinking that COMB needs to do more and be more proactive on the fire scene. So staff presented to us how we are an integral partner with the county, locally, with every segment of having to do with fire, whether it's emergency, whether it's the fire service, whether it's all the fire departments, whatever it might be, just to show that we aren't the fire department and we don't intend to be the fire department, but certainly we have a critical reason to have a working relationship with all these various entities, and we do. That concludes the operations. So in the board meeting, Kristen Stedden was appointed our new president. Corey Heyman from Montecito is appointed vice president. Patrick O'Connor is representing CARP, or that was the plan. We had to vote on it tonight. Everything from the operations that I just discussed was discussed and passed. Edward, our financial controller, got another award for the certificate of recognition for budget purposes from the Government Finance Office Association. We have gotten those awards too. And it just makes our budget better and better and better every year, so that was a really good thing. It was a dry year. We are working with CDFW to move up to 1,200 fish from the streams that are drying up down to the main stream. That's an ongoing basis. So the good news is we had lots of water and lots of fish, and now we don't want to see the fish get stranded, so we're moving them to better ground as things start to dry up. Let's see. We're getting ready for COMB's OPEB roll forward actuary evaluation. Last year we did a full evaluation. This year it's going to be partial, but we're getting ready for that. We are in discussions with the Bureau of Reclamation on replacing the 2 infamous 30-inch valves. These will be 24-inch. They think they will be better designed, and if they can, they're going to try and put 2 new smaller valves in front of those valves as guard valves. We don't have pricing on that yet, but we are working with the Bureau on that. So the fire discussion went from, yes, we're in touch with all of these entities. Bendy would like us to take a bigger role with working on inspections with the various fire departments and starting planned fires. I'm not sure that either of those are really conducive to COMB, but we talked forever about fire retardant and making sure that we are doing the right things, that when these fires happen, that the retardants that are flying over the lake, are properly that we know what we're talking about, that it's keeping the water safe. Yes, that goes through Cater, but still. So there's room for improvement there, and we have some actions to go forward with that. And then on oak trees, they should be finishing the inventory in the next month, and we are watering and weeding. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Actually, does the Cater take out the fire retardant?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so we have more to go on that.
I'm
just
sure it
how
will,
much,
but-
Yeah, I
how,
think-
how much,
Yeah.
how much goes from the
pretty healthy dose.
the
Right,
surrounding
no,
lake
it's-
into the lake, and who do we need to talk to about it?
Yeah, there's a fire retardant called Phos Check, which has PFAS in it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what she's talking about.
They're going to stop using it, I'm assuming,
I
right?
think they have largely
Right,
stopped using
because
it.
it's
yeah.
already illegal. Okay, got it.
Yeah, but some people were
Yeah.
concerned, so we're gonna double check some things.
Thank you. Then we got 9D, CCWA regular meeting, June 26, 2025. Casey?
All right, so the biggest kind of update is on the golden mussels. I kind of told you guys about it a little while ago, but they popped up in October of '24 up in the headwaters and have now trickled their way down. So they're down at the first pumping plant, and I guess they've caught some shells in the screens at Colonial Pass, but some good news on it is they do not attach in chlorine concentration of like 1 to 2 parts. They won't attach to infrastructure, so it's looking like the impact to any treatment plant will be very minimal, and they don't survive somewhere north of 5 parts per million at all. So they will not be too problematic, at least treatment plant wise, but the headwaters are where the concern is. The state's been doing a lot of work on mitigating it as best they can. They've done some molluscides. They've started some inspections. So I anticipate that'll just continue to kind of trickle down the state, and we'll see a lot of stuff similar to the quagga and zebra. I think we'll just see a lot of that stuff. The water report, we'll go over it here, so I don't really need to talk about it also, but water-wise, we're in a good position. And yeah, everything else is closed session.
Thank you. Actually, I think I'm allowed to make this comment. So the district did have a visit or a field day tour of Casitas Lake, and I think both Patrick and myself were on it with a lot of the employees. I thought that went very well. That was very well presented by the manager and general manager, and I joined it very much. And it was a very nice luncheon at the Marina Cafe or whatever it's called. So that was, yeah.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, it was
very informative
yeah,
for me.
and I felt bad for the other 3 board members that they missed out. So
I learned that there's a shallow part of the lake and there's a deep part of the lake.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, pretty deep.
It matters.
I was in Poland. I mean,
Well, all right. Well, probably the beer is good over there, right?
Yeah, anytime you would like to take a tour, Casitas Management has offered to do it during the tour season, ends in the winter, but yeah.
Kachuma's next.
Okay, right. Okay. Kachuma or Casitas?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm
No, Patrick. you-
selfishly going on with my new project.
All right. General Manager's Report, number 10A, financial, Norma.
I'll let Norma present that one.
Right, water sales to actual for April, we're 236 acre feet above budgeted projections through April. Our overall water sales are at about 81%, so just under, because this includes monthly service fees as well. But our total revenue is at 87%, so about 4% above budgeted projections, and operating expenditures are right on at 83%, so right on target.
Okay, so then that covers operating. Then we go to 10C, engineering report, Bob.
I'm just gonna ask if you have any questions about the operations, engineering, or intent to serve letter reports. I'll
No,
be happy to
if
answer those.
There's no questions, we move on. And then the same for the water supply report.
I have a little presentation just to give you on the water supply. This says May, but for some reason our reporting, keeps getting the month wrong, but this is actually, well, actually this is May. So we're we're in July, so we missed this last time, so this is kind of lagging a month behind. But total water supply, surface water supply is significant. And we have 6,000 some acre feet in storage, both in the State Water Project and in the Kachuma Reservoir, so a lot of carryover. We're investigating marketing some of this water because at some point it's going to be very risky that we lose all of it. And so primarily looking at marketing some of the state water, excess state water. Well production kind of by year. This month has been a low production month because we hit our target about 6 months ago. So most of the water being pumped now from our groundwater wells is just for sampling and operational, running it enough so that it doesn't have biological problems. Groundwater levels. So this is something that the GSA folks, I think Ben was kind of talking about this earlier during the GSA. Alan Soicher was here. He had inquired about this by email a couple of days ago. And probably what will happen is we'll put this report on the website, on the GSA website, but we'll also include it in the GSA water level report. But for now, it's on the water supply report. So this is kind of from 2019 to 2025. So this was the most recent sample here, and it was taken this month. And so you can see a general trend upwards. The water levels did take a dip in 22, which was a very dry year. But even though this year was very dry, we still saw a rise in water levels. So that's good news. This is 21N1, so it's over here. All right, it's one of these over here. Or I'm sorry, I think it's this one. So these 4 wells I'm going to show you are kind of across this line here.
Bob?
Yes.
Just a quick question. The rise during the dry year, is that because of state water? Excuse me, state water?
I don't really know why it rose this much during the dry year. It's
Continued infiltration.
yeah, I think that's got to be it because we didn't have enough. We had half the normal rainfall this year, so it could have been from the very wet year previous year.
It's not from state water.
No, state water.
No, that was the question.
No.
Right, but when we did our recharge basin at Casitas Fast 40 years ago, at the time they did a study, and it takes 10 years for the water from infiltrate all the way down there. So obviously there's a lot of water in motion here. That's the only way you can explain that. So.
Yeah, that's the only way. That's the only explanation I can see. Again, back in 2015, general upward trend. Currently, the last sample we took at 19K5, which is over by Arroyo Paradon Creek, is it's above sea level, so that's good. The Smiley Well, so we saw this area is pumped heavily, and so we saw a pretty precipitous decline all the way through 2022, but a recovery once that rain came, and it started back up. It has dipped a little bit. We haven't been pumping Smiley Well for the last several years, so this is all related to private pumping. Then San Ynez Well, which is in the yard next to Headquarters Well. So these red markers are when the Headquarters Well is pumping, so they represent a pumping level as opposed to a static water level. Normally, when we want to know what's happening with the basin, we try to look for static numbers. If you kind of trace along the blue dots, that's kind of the static level, and so you can see a general upward trend again. The last one before July was almost at sea level. we had turned on the headquarters well just to take some samples here, and so, of course, this is a pumping level. So.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can you go back a slide? So there's the minimum action level, what's the level that's set by the GSA for the minimum?
MTs.
The MTs?
Yeah.
So would it be possible to overlay those onto those? I have no idea what,
yeah.
how low that is, because that was set, right? Those
Yeah.
numbers
Yeah,
exist.
we could do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thanks.
So from the district's groundwater pumping, as I said, we started in July and we hit our target basically in December, and so it's been pretty flat with very little groundwater being pumped the second half of the year. These increases are all related to, operating the pump, just to make sure it's doesn't have problems for not operating it for long enough and taking samples. So meter consumption in May across 4 years. So you can see this May, we were a little bit higher than the 2 previous years. That's largely because we had a very dry winter. And so both M&I and Ag are up for the month of May. This chart demonstrates kind of the relationship between rainfall, which is shown here, and water consumption. And this month, it didn't really have much of an effect because, rain was very minimal, and it was in these 2 months, and that's typically in the winter months. And we saw a decline in consumption in February and March. Typically, we see it January, February, March, and then it rose as the temperature warmed up. As far as our projections, this is total fiscal year water sales. We had a target of 3371. Unfortunately, we hit 3371 in April and had very little consumption adding to that. So we have it basically dipping below the target number of 3371 in June. For Ag, we actually hit the target on the nose here, so that's good. And then for M&I, that's where we sort of missed the target in this last month.
Don't they just flatline because there's no data?
Yeah.
Like we
you're
couldn't
right.
have sold.
You're right.
Yeah,
We're in May, so yeah, I'm sorry. We're on track right here. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I misread that. Then the state water allocation for 25 started out at 5% in December and has risen to a final number of 50% in 4/29/25. We don't expect that to change at this point. Reservoirs are fairly full across the state. The two big ones are Oroville, which state water reservoir, it's very full. And Shasta, which is the Central Valley Project, very full. San Luis, right here is an operating reservoir, so it's average. And then, of course, Kachuma and Casitas are both full. Carpinteria received 47% of average rainfall this year, which is very low, 8 inches, which isn't enough to do really anything. So we would expect that the Ag be using a little bit more water, but we'll see as the year progresses. Reservoir summary, so Kachuma, which is what we're interested in, is 163,000 acre feet. That's pretty high. We typically don't, we're coming into October, which they make the allocation for the water year in October. And we request 100% allocation for Kachuma, which we expect to get because of the levels. There is a drought monitor indication of drought in the area. Currently in Santa Barbara County, we're between moderate and severe. So this changes over the months. So as it gets warmer, we'll see what it looks like. And that's it for the water supply report.
Any questions? Bob, as far as, I know we got some big projects to finish first, but ASR wells, how far are we from both the grants and also being able to start pumping back into the groundwater?
So we're in preliminary design for the Smiley well, which is going to be an ASR well. We expect, we're trying to coordinate the construction of that well, so we're not constructing that well and injection wells and monitoring wells at the same time. That might mean that it will be 2027 before the Smiley well is drilled and completed.
So, but we can't do it ahead of cap? I mean, it is.
We talked about that at a design meeting a couple of days ago, and based on the amount of work that has to be done, we don't think it would work to
Okay.
get it
Well,
drilled. I do have an update. I didn't want to bring this to you, but I will say that we were recommended for a grant on that project that we applied for, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. So when I say recommended, that's what it means. They have to go through a process to actually award the money, and so I don't want to count on it until we're at that point, but
But it's going in the right direction.
yeah, it's going the right direction. It's
All right.
Thank you. Around a $3 million grant
For Smiley, you mean?
Awesome.
for Smiley
But
well.
towards Smiley?
Can I dovetail on that ASR question? We have ASR capable wells already, right?
We do, we have headquarters and Elcare are both ASR.
And
capable.
has permitting been explored yet on any of those, or no?
No, we've done some pilot programs to identify, how much and what the effects will be. But those, since we've started the CAP project, those wells will not be used for ASR because you're competing with the other injection wells at that point. So one of the things that we decided was, let's look at, since Smiley Well is now no longer functioning, let's look at this site as a potential well site for ASR.
Thanks.
Yeah, in fact, one other thing I'll say about that is Montecito did a groundwater modeling study on the area that Smiley Well is in to consider groundwater banking. We were working with Montecito. And they did find that area is probably one of the best areas to be injecting water.
Doesn't that kind of confirm what we thought? I thought we thought that too.
We really didn't know until Montecito did its work. I mean,
I thought it was like Smiley that, the well that could, it was in a good spot. I don't know. Okay.
yeah, we did the model, or Montecito did the modeling and confirmed that.
So they're going to pay us to bank.
We don't know.
How do you know?
They were willing to do the work, and
If they're willing to pay Santa Barbara $5,000 an
Which
acre
had to
foot,
get
I
us-
mean, they were cheap, so it is,
Which had to
okay,
get on
thanks.
your tap.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, all three closed session items are good? I just want to.
I think we don't have anything on CCWA.
I could talk for 2 seconds on
Okay,
that.
well, we
Okay.
can hold that one. So we also have the two closed sessions which go together to discuss succession planning.
Okay, then I'll read them all up. Number 11, closed session. 11A, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9 D1. Name of the case, Central Coast Water Authority et al. Versus Santa Barbara County Flood Control and Water Conservation District et al. Case number 21 CV 02432. Then you got 11B, closed session, public employee employment Government Code Section 54957, titled General Manager. Then you got 11C, closed session, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, agency designated representative, Kees van Wingerde, and board president, representative employee, general
Recording stopped.
manager.
Cut you off there.
Take a hint. You trying to tell us something?
I think it was a subtle miss.
Good afternoon and welcome to the board meeting of Carpinteria Unified School District. This is 4:30 p.m. We're beginning our closed session. We will now take, we need to do a roll call.
Recording in progress.
We're back in open session. Item number 11A, no reportable action. Item number 11B, no reportable action. Item number 11C, no reportable action. And then number 13, consider dates and items for agenda for the Carpinteria Valley Water District Board meeting of July 23rd, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Carpinteria City Hall, 5775 Carpinteria Avenue, Carpinteria, California. and
Hold on,
we
I'm not sure this needs to be on the agenda. Maybe it doesn't, but I think the board should be kept informed of the discussions between staff and the people at the Meadows, because if I was told in June that 3 wells were going across next door to me and the design was final, I probably would be freaking out too. Okay. I think it needs to be said.
Thank you. Yeah, so meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Do you know any of these guys at the Meadows or no?